And I call the ADA Act.
That's okay.
That's my right to sit here with vision impaired. And I'm sitting right here. Vision impaired, I'm fine.
It's 6 o'clock, we're going to call to order the City of Kennedy's regular city council meeting, June 11, 2019. A quorum is present. As soon as the cameras move, we're going to call the roll to proceed with the meeting.
Violates my rights. The public meeting violates my rights. I'm not blocking anybody and I'm not in anybody's way.
Thank you, follow the rules back there.
We appreciate it.
This is what's wrong with Kenedy.
And it also provides what happens if they don't, if there is this.
So, yeah, the rules do say that absolutely people have a right to report, but you can adopt rules that govern that reporting, and y'all have adopted rules. The rules say that be quiet and non-disruptive. If it becomes disruptive, then the mayor or chairman shall have the right to require the videotape and cease and desist. It also talks about not being obstructive. So if the mayor's determination is that it's obstructive, then she can still record, but it needs to be moved to comply with the rules that y'all have adopted here for the meetings.
How am I disruptive? I'm not blocking anybody.
I don't write the rules, I just follow them, that's all.
Yeah, it does say they should be positioned in the back of the meeting room or along an aisle in such a way as not to obstruct traffic.
Or along an aisle, not to obstruct.
And the mayor's determination was that his determination was obstructive, so it should be in the back of the meeting room.
How is this obstructive? I'm not blocking anybody, and no, I'm not blocking anybody
This is
here.
this is going to be the only warning that I provide for you. If there's any more outbursts from you, if the camera doesn't move, we're going to instruct them to remove it from the building. Would you please move the camera to the back of the building?
You can sit where you are to move the camera.
Carl, will you run my camera too? Back there? If I put my camera back there, will you keep it going?
Why, where are you going?
I'm gonna sit right here. I'm not allowed to have my camera here because it's obstructing.
Oh, well.
The mayor.
If you want me to, I will.
This is another way he gets his way when he turns the city into his playground.
You need to buzz over there.
Okay, let's not. We're not doing it.
No, we're not, because you need to shut up.
She's going to have to move the camera.
Yeah, just stop.
She's going to want. Okay. We're going to call the meeting to order and announce a quorum is present. Amanda, would you please call the roll?
Councilor Briones?
Present.
Councilor Wynn?
Present.
Councilor Sines? Present. Councilor Kano? Here. Councilor Meyer?
Here.
All are present.
Thank you. Councilor Mayor, sit carefully, sir.
Be with us, watch over us, take care of us. Allow us to do the things necessary to take care of us. And help all of us work together. Respectful of each other, all the rules of each other, make it seem that
Salvador Miller.
Is there anybody else who didn't have the opportunity to sign up for public comment that would like to? No? Okay.
My comment is that east and west traffic on Main Street between First and First Street is heavy at times. The traveling at speeds unsafe for pedestrians crossing Main Street. Most communities post a 30-mile-an-hour time in heavy traffic zones for pedestrians to cross. I'm respectively asking the council to consider posting 30-mile-an-hour signs and strictly enforce the 30-mile-an-hour speed zone on Main Street between First and Fifth Street for the purpose of ensuring safe pedestrian crossings on Main Street. Strict enforcement of this speed zone with zero tolerance would be helpful. That means 31 miles an hour would be over the speed limit. But then again, we have to consider, pedestrians crossing the street at times are not thinking about crossing the street. Drivers behind the wheel get a call from the office and they're distracted from their driving. This kind of a double-edged sword. One on the driver, one on the pedestrian. So, what I'm asking is the speed zone to be enforced there. This is basically it. I put this in a public comment. It needs to be presented formally. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys actually Chad came to me a couple weeks ago and he asked me to put it on the agenda. I suggested the chief visit with him. He's still on the agenda. I dropped the ball. We had 22 items on there. My fault. I dropped the ball. I explained that to him. So I think it needs to be on the agenda next meeting. So, my apologies, Chad. Anyone else on that? Is anyone else on that?
Yes, sir. Luana Casper.
Okay.
April 25th, Clem called City Hall and asked if he could take items to the city collection site. He was told to come and fill out the paperwork. The clerk told him a copy of his driver's license would be made and kept on file. He questioned why and was told that was procedure. He continued to question and was told that they would ask her when she returned. He called back at 2 and was told a copy had to be made and retained. He said he wanted to see that in black and white and was told to fill out a public information request, which he did. It is important to follow this timeline. For those that may not know, a respondent has 10 business days to answer a public information request. May 21st, I emailed the city secretary and city manager as no response had been received. 18 business days had elapsed. May 22nd, Clem went to City Hall to ensure the receipt of my email. The city secretary came out with his PIR and said she had tried to call the phone number several times and it didn't work. She explained there were no copies at City Hall, but another department had a copy and she would give one and call him. He asked her to go to a phone and call the number on the PIR. She did, and of course his cell phone rang. She stated, "I tried calling, it didn't work, I'm not lying." Again, Clem inquired about the need to retain a copy, and she said one isn't kept. The clerk in the office corrected her and said, "No, it is procedure to keep a copy." 3:09 p.m. she called Clem at the same number and said they had no internet, so a copy could not be made. May 24th, the city secretary called and said the PIR was there. He picked it up, we read the pamphlet, and it is vague. He returned to City Hall, and a clerk told him it was clear. You come to City Hall, we make a copy of your driver's license and keep it on file. You look at this pamphlet, nowhere is that printed. We spoke to our council rep, and one other member of council, and Clem spoke to another councilman. Clem was informed that this was a requirement of TCEQ, and the city didn't need to have more issues with TCEQ. After that, I started to research. Texas Administrative Code does not contain such requirement. In case I missed it, I called TCEQ and was told there's no such requirement. TCEQ does have a requirement that a collection site must be attended during the hours of operation. When identity theft is as prevalent as it is, why would the city of Kenedy want to open themselves to that liability? This was requested to be an agenda item, but management said the policy would be rewritten. The mayor has indicated among the general duties of a city council member is, quote, acting with the entire city council to formulate policies and to supervise administrative officers of the city, close quote. Policies involving activities of the city of Kenedy should be formulated and voted on by the city council, indicating approval and the necessity of enforcement.
Anyone else?
Joe Baker.
Good evening. As a resident of this awesome community we call Kenedy, Texas, I am here tonight to encourage all of you to do what's right for the people of this town. In my opinion, the people of this community would greatly benefit from a top-level change in the city's management, specifically a change in who has the position of city manager. When the current city manager was hired, many people questioned the council's decision, considering how many who applied for the position that appeared to be far more skilled, experienced, and qualified. Most of those who voted to hire the current city manager are no longer sitting where you are now. And I think there's a good reason for that. Through their vote, people spoke for change, but in spite of that, the city is still being managed in the same way by the same city manager. There's no job that a city council does that is more important than selecting and hiring an honest, professional, qualified, respectful, but most of all, competent and effective city manager. If the city council does that job right, then there's really very little else the city council would need to do. There's not enough time allowed for me to cite all the examples that would show the current city manager is not the best person for this critical position, but I encourage you all to gather all the information and listen to the people of this town when they speak. I've been around long enough to experience life in Kenedy before and after the oil boom came along. Before the boom, we wish we had the money we needed to make things better for the people of this community. The money is there now and has been for almost 10 years, but are things truly getting any better? Or is the current management just spending, throwing money at problems and just hoping they go away? Please drive around this town, take a look around, talk to the people who live here, and then take another good hard look at Kenedy and ask yourself, are things better here now than they were before the current city manager was hired? If the answer is no, then ask yourself what you can do to make a change so that one day things are truly better in this town for the people of Kenedy. The people of Kenedy deserve an honest, respectful, qualified, professional, and effective city manager. A city manager that we can all be proud to call our own. Is that what we have? As council members, you have power and responsibility to make a change that can really make things. Please make that change. Thank you.
Sandra Lucas.
Good evening. I think most of you know who I am. I'm the previous city secretary. This goes back to when Barbara Shaw was hired. Yes, in November 2016, she was hired. She was not the most qualified person for the position. Not to say she couldn't do the job. At least I thought so until I was warned by a previous council member, the only one who I thought would be the least one to care about anything about me. He warned me to watch my back when she was being hired. She began her employment in January of 2017. In March 3rd, I was trying to rectify a situation with my clerk that she had brought to my attention. I addressed it to the superintendent at the water department, and I was written up for trying to resolve a situation. Because I didn't belong there. I needed to be back where I belonged, which is kind of funny because I know her utility clerk camps out over there at the water department now. For what reasons, I don't know. It's not my business. The following week, when I was sick one day, and I never called in sick, I was maxed out on my sick leave, 720 hours. She decided to use that day to write up my other clerk instead of including me in that decision. But the clerk didn't want to be written up. She decided to quit. And I found out that day when I was at home sick. After I was written up and my clerk had quit, come April 3rd, she brought me to council, the previous council and mayor, including Brandon, who was here. That night, I was informed by Walter Chance, a previous council member at Diamond Shamrock, before the meeting, hey, you're getting fired tonight. She got the votes to fire you. I was floored. I came to that meeting, couldn't believe that. I guess they had all discussed what was going to happen to me before even talking to me. No one asked me questions. He was here as well. I maybe had 2 questions that whole evening. She presented a stack of documents to everyone that was here except for me. I had no information to go by. She proceeded to say things about my job that weren't true. I tried to rebut everything I could, what I could remember, but no one on council would help me remember each item because I had nothing in front of me. So it was recommended that I get fired that night, and it happened, of course. And going back to my other clerk that was going to be written up, I just think that she was attacked from the very beginning, basically because I issued her a raise and not the other clerk, and it was based on job performance. That's why they call them merit raises. Needless to say, I was terminated effective immediately that night. I filed for unemployment. I had to go through 2 phone hearings with a hearing officer and city reps. Both times I was granted my unemployment because they could not find just cause why I should be terminated. But of course, what good does that do me? In the state of Texas, all it takes is a few people to conspire against somebody, and you're an at-will employee, and there's nothing to protect an employee. You can be terminated for no reason, and that's exactly what happened to me. All because a few people conspired against me. I had Cindy reach out to me recently who wanted to mend fences with me. But I encourage her, when you go in executive session, that if you have any firsthand knowledge of what happened to me and anybody else, I don't ask anybody to lie or say things that aren't true, just who has firsthand knowledge about what happened to me and anybody else in this city, that you discuss it and inform everybody here when it comes to evaluating your city manager. And maybe y'all should look at how many people have come and gone from the city since your city manager has been here. Only 2 years. It's an enormous amount of people that have either quit or have been fired. And I just encourage you, because she found it so easy to do the wrong thing. It is so easy, much more easier to do the right thing. And I hope that y'all will do that. Thank you.
Good evening.
1 second, Maurice. Yes?
He doesn't follow your procedure. He doesn't live in the city limits.
He doesn't have to. A citizen is anybody in the United States or Canada.
That's not what we were told.
Who told you that? That's
Amanda and your lawyer.
well, that's not right. So, go ahead. Sure? Yeah, I'm sure.
Good evening to the city council, to the mayor. I'm here basically to speak about the conversation regarding barbershop. All I can tell you is I don't live here, I come to your meetings on a regular basis. But I
expect that the newspaper is relatively active. Now, Barbara and I, over the years, have not always had a good relationship. We've been kind of testy with each other. But I know since she's been here as a city manager, as according to the newspaper, that she's done a pretty good job. A lot of the problems that she has, she's inherited. I mean, you got a water project going on now that's replacing a system that's been here 60 or 70 years. Okay. She's working with the airport to improve the facilities out there. She hired helped to hire a new police chief. Now, this doesn't address a lot of issues, but you're always going to have a personality conflict. I mean, you're not going to make everybody happy. I mean, you're not going to make everybody happy. But the thing that I would encourage the city council to do is to look at her accomplishments and for the things that she's done for the city of Kenedy, which are pretty substantial. So again, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, my name is Maurice A. Yarden. I live in County Road 330, 1246 County Road 330. So I would encourage you all to look at this more objectively and not with a personal nature. She's going to make mistakes. She's going to make errors. Trust me, I know. We're dealing with a situation in Karnes County. Let's just say we've had a lot of errors. Lots of them. So I'd encourage you to look at it objectively and move appropriately. Thank you.
Would you like to speak? Did you not have the opportunity to sign up? No? Okay, anyone else?
That is all.
Okay. Moving on, consent agenda. Consider an act on consent agenda. Any movement on that? You guys want to consider that? Do you want to pull anything to review? Any movement?
First of all, I'll make a motion that we consider that, but I do want to pull the airport board. I believe there's somebody here who will give us a tour.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Discussion.
Could y'all speak into the speakers because we cannot hear y'all better?
It's good, we can't hear.
I'll try to speak loud enough so you can hear me. I was an officer in the military, and one thing that you want to do to be successful there, you got to have a big mouth. When the M60 machine gun starts, nobody can hear anything. Let me take you outside. We've all got our opinions on things. I certainly have mine, and you have yours. I come here tonight, I used to serve on the school board here in Kenedy, and we went through some pretty rough times. And we're going to have differences of opinion. I don't think you're ever going to get even two people, even two married people to agree on everything. I've been married over 40 years, and I just do what she tells me to do, and things are better. So, anyway, as I started in my airport deal here, I wanted to congratulate the council, first of all, on the new water source. As a citizen here, I live right on the edge of town, but you know what? I tied into city water, and I pay double the raw water rate, and I'm glad to do it because I've got good water. And I'm glad to hear we've got more good water coming. It's going to take a little while to get here, but that is a feather in everybody's cap on this council. Pardon?
I said, thanks, Barbara.
You bet. I think that was a majestic move on her part to do the work that it took to negotiate that. I'm a businessman, I negotiate projects all the time, and I know it's a lot of work. This Escondido Creek Park project, the county council's got behind. And one of these days, I'm hoping in a couple of years, our kids will be going down there, they'll be riding their bikes on bike paths, they'll be walking along there. They'll be able to go from this side of town over to the new sports complex, back and forth, without having to worry about the highway. If I were a kid trying to cross 181 and Highway 72 on my bicycle, I think I'd be a little intimidated by that, but we're taking care of that, and that's going to be great. And the parks, both of them are going to be wonderful. The initiatives on the new water lines here in town, you know, it seemed like as long as I've been here, we spent more time fixing old water lines than we could have started replacing with new water lines, and we're doing that. We got a program in place, I understand. And also the sewer system, instead of spending money on a bunch of fines that you could spend, working with TCEQ and working on that case. There are other items, and I'm not here to talk about all those tonight. Y'all kick me out of here if I don't start talking about the airport. But I do want to thank y'all for the work you're doing. It's kind of a thankless job. You've got to make decisions in both areas, but I do think you're making a lot of progress. So I thank you for that. I want to give you the report that I gave the airport board today. Our airport board meets each month, and we are now in phase 2 of a 2-phase project at the airport. First of all, we've changed, actually the council changed the name of the airport a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. But the state of Texas, in getting these grants, the money that we got, they do not want us to change the name right then because they've got it in their system as the old Karnes County Airport. So now that we're in the second grant and all that money has been set aside and all that's done, we're officially changing the name finally out there. So if you go out to the airport, you will see 2 new signs, and they both say Kenedy Regional Airport. So, and everybody will know that if they travel. There's a lot of flying public. They're not here tonight. A lot of people fly in to this airport all the time to do business. You don't see them because they come in during the day. They're here 2 or 3 hours and leave. They're flying different types of aircraft. Sometimes there's a bunch of them. Sometimes there's just one of them. But all of them are important to our county. And they're going to be saying Kenedy Regional, Bonanza 318 Juliet, 5 miles north inbound for landing. And someone else will say, well, I'm 2 miles on the west and whatever. That's how we talk to each other. But they're going to be saying Kenedy Regional instead of Karnes County. I want you to know that. As y'all know also, we have a new automatic weather observation station that's here. Not every city's got one of those. It is the only one in the county. If you want to call it and check the weather or get information, dial 583-8080. Write it down. I've got it memorized, so you can ask me anytime. Walk down the street, stop me. And we had our first annual inspection on May the 22nd, and we passed with flying colors. We had one adjustment made to the wind direction sensor because we've had some heavy winds come up out there. Time they can move that sensor around. But the guy from the FAA out of Houston and the gentleman that is the inspector for this equipment, which is also out of Houston, complimented us on the clean setup that we've got for the weather observation system. And we will be published in the airframe or aircraft facilities directory on August the 20th. That's the national directory for this system. So pretty soon when y'all start looking on the television set, if you ever look up there and it has San Antonio and it's got Corpus, and a lot of times you'll see Karnes City, because Karnes City's kind of right in the middle. Right. You're going to start seeing Kenedy there because we're a weather reporting operation. So, we finally found a person in Fort Worth who could get that done. We call this the National Airspace Data Interchange Network. And Kenedy is going to be providing information on that web network all the time. Anytime there's emergencies, what have you, we will be reporting our share of weather to the national weather system. We now have a new push-button lock on the front door for the 24-hour services that we now provide at the airport. We have people that can land at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they need fuel, and they have somebody on board, and they need to go to a restroom. Well, we now have the ability where they can go to our door, punch in a code, and actually get access to a restroom without waking me up. That's important, you know.
Don't give us any more number.
A year or so ago, we had Halo flight land out here at 2:30 in the morning, and it was one of those freezing nights, and they couldn't, and the fog was coming down, and the ice was coming down. They couldn't make it to Beeville, so they called me, and I got to make some new friends driving them down to Beeville. Good folks, and we have a lot of fun in what we do, but this will help us and make us more of a 24-hour facility, because we can't be there all the time. The T hangers that are on the south side of the big building, we took all the skin off of them, hired a contractor, Garrett Kopecky, came down here, and they have now put all new skin on the T hangers. We've got the electrical guys and the plumbing guys there this week. They'll be finishing by the end of this week, and we hope to have that completely done in the next 2-week period. However, we will not put any airplanes in there right away because the runway is torn up. We tore up the runway on April the 18th, and it'll probably be down until about September the 10th or 15th because we're replacing the runway. A lot of issues replacing the runway. When we took up the runway, we discovered that the base does not meet state quality. You know, I guess that's the way to say it, nor FAA quality. So we had to go back in and redesign it. We're taking all of it out and we're putting in new base, and you're going to have a very good runway service. We're working on a taxiway lighting system so that when you get off of the runway at night, you can find your way over to the ramp because it's pretty dark out there at night. There's been a question about mowing and herbiciding at the airport, and I wanted to kind of bring you a little history on that because I know there's a question about licensing and of the herbicide. Basically, this is my fault. In April of '82, that's 37 years ago, we started acting as the FBO manager at the airport. The mayor at that time, Reuben Franklin, some of you are young enough to remember him, said in effect, listen, you guys run the airport and let me know if you need anything, but by the way, just leave me alone. So that's pretty much what we did. And at that time, there was an older man here in town. His name was Preston Ideas. Does anybody remember Preston Ideas? Nice gentleman, just a good guy. Poor guy, I felt so sorry for him. I could see him out there on those hot days, and he had this old tractor. He must have had to put that thing together every time it came out there to mow. And it was broken down, I think, more in the field than it was running. But anyway, Preston, for about 15 years, he mowed. And actually what he did, he cut hay. He tried to make some hay out of that out there. He never herbicided. He never fertilized. Couldn't afford to. But he was trying to make a little hay on that, so he did. But after about 15 years, he passed away. So I went to the mayor and said, look, our gentleman's no longer with us. You've got another idea. I said, well, let's see if we can find somebody. So the mayor and the city council really tried to find somebody that would go out there and mow that 60 acres. So it's about 70 acres total, but you got to take the buildings out. Well, you couldn't get anybody that wanted to go out there and haul equipment all the way out there just to cut about 60 acres. So finally, the mayor, and I forgot who told me this, he said, look, just call me. Just call us and we'll come out and mow it. Well, so that's what I did. I called, and said, somebody could come out here and mow, and they said, yeah, we'll make out a ticket for it and do it. And sometimes they'd be out there in 2 hours. Sometimes they're out there in 2 months. And sometimes you don't need to call them at all because we have been through some droughts and nothing grows. Yeah. We've had that too. So we've got all that. So we don't need a full-time person, but we need someone that can respond. So we did that up until about 2 years ago, and one of our mowers ran over a fawn because, you know, the grass was pretty deep, you couldn't see it. And it just turned his stomach. And you know what? I don't blame him. That's never happened to me. I've had people, one guy ran over a fawn on my place not too long ago, and even though I didn't see it and I didn't know it at the time, I felt real bad about it, and I know how he can feel bad, but just didn't want to mow out there anymore. So the grass started growing, and almost, I don't know, 8 months went by or so, and I'm looking for someone to mow this grass. I don't care who it is. Just come on out here and help me. And so I called around. I got a couple of names. One of them I called was Jimmy Burns. I told Jimmy the problem. I said, Jimmy, I don't even know what you do. I think he's in the water business or something. But do you do this on the side? He says, yeah, I do some of this. I'll help you. So I said, okay. So he was out there that afternoon. He started mowing. And I looked at his tractor was kind of buried in the brush. So I went home and I got my tractor. I'm telling a story here. Everybody wants to get on this meeting and I'm telling a story. But anyway, so I went home and got my tractor. So I was mowing along. Plus he had another guy helping him. So there's 3 of us mowing. Just so happened that day we got about toward the north end of the airport. The day the fire occurred over here at the old Walmart. Next thing we know, we're all engulfed in black smoke. Couldn't see anything. So we pulled off the side and Jimmy came and got us, and we had to finish that a little later. But anyway, you know, that's how I kind of got started working with him. And I asked him, you know, can you help us here for a while until we figure out what to do? So he said, yeah, he would. And he started doing a really good job of mowing and keeping everything down. We put up in phase 1 of our airport project a fence. There is now an $80,000 fence that goes all the way around the airport. Only it's not a little 5-foot fence, you know. It's, I don't know, how high is a Deer Creek fence? 7 feet, 8 feet, 10 foot? I don't know how high. It's up there. But all around the airport, I've never seen, I didn't know this because it did not happen in my house, but vines get into that fence. You know, the fence has got little squares like this. So the vine, it just climbs right up those vines and pulls the whole fence over. So when I saw that, I couldn't believe it. So I was talking to Jimmy about something else. I says, you know anybody here in town that does herbicide? I got to get this taken care of right away. And he says, well, I got some equipment I can spray it. I said, can you get out here today and do it? I can't wait. You know, I'm not, you know, I just don't want this to happen. He says, yeah, I'll come on out there and do that. Well, he sprayed the fence, did a good job. And then I noticed that the grass was beginning to grow back into the asphalt, or the new asphalt we put down from the previous job we had done by TxDOT and ourselves, of course. So I said, Jimmy, could you spray around that asphalt and keep that grass from growing the asphalt? We have lost 6 feet on the runway in the last 33 years because grass is encroached on the sides, and we haven't been able to herbicide. The state will help you herbicide it if they'll only do it twice a year. So Jimmy started spraying that stuff. Wow, that's wonderful. What do you use? He says, Roundup. So I didn't think anything about it. I hear now you're supposed to have a license to do that. Okay, well, I didn't know that. And I was just thankful it's done, because if you go down there now, you'll see the airport looks real nice. But I wanted to just say that, you know, I'm kind of the culprit in that. And I talked to Mr. Burns today and said, look, you can't do this anymore until you get a license. You got to go get a license. He said, I'm getting a license. I said, okay, go get a license, because, you know, we need to be licensed and we need to do what we need to do. So anyway, that's kind of my story on the airport. I know you all want to listen to me all night, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'm sorry. Does anyone have any questions about the airport facility and everything we're doing? And I would like to again thank the council, city manager, and all of you. Thank you all so much.
You guys have any questions? Are you happy with the service?
Yes.
Okay.
Very happy. Very happy with the service. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Mr. Reiner.
My mouth is dry. I'm going home.
there anything else any of you guys would like to pull? No? Okay, do I hear a motion to consider and act on the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda. Second.
Call roll.
Counselor Briones?
Yes.
Counselor Wynn?
Yes.
Counselor Sines?
Yes.
Counselor Conlon? Yes. Counselor Meyer?
Yes.
All in favor?
Motion passes. Item number 7, consideration and possible action to appoint Lindy Amasek, Karnes County Tax Assessor Collector, to calculate the effective and rollback tax rates for the 2019 tax year. Any movement?
Make a motion, we have, take action on item 7.
Second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Anything you guys want to discuss? Call the roll, please. Oh, I'm sorry, one second.
What's the effective rate going to end up being?
Oh, we have no idea yet, Brandon. We don't have certified values. We'll calculate the rate on July 3rd.
Anything else? Call roll.
Counselor Briones?
Yes.
Counselor Wynn?
Yes.
Counselor Sines?
Yes.
Counselor Conlon? Yes. Counselor Meyer?
Yes.
Motion passes. Item number 8, consideration and possible action to appoint Leslie Wynn, Mayor Pro Tem. Any movement on that item?
I make a motion that we consider to appoint Leslie Wynn as Mayor Pro Tem.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion on that item? Does anyone have anything that they'd like to discuss? Brenda, anything you want to say? You made the motion.
I'm good.
Is there anybody else that wants to be mayor pro tem? I don't.
This is what I did. It was supposed to be renewed every year. I waited a whole entire month. Nobody said a single word to me, Barbara, Amanda, anybody.
Okay.
So I said, okay, let's renew Leslie. That's what we want to do.
Leslie, are you happy with that?
I'm good with it.
Can I nominate somebody if I mean,
You could make a motion to that, but I think you'd have to do it on the next agenda because the name's not on it, but I could be wrong.
That's good.
So we got a motion, we got a second. Is there any other discussion?
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Craig. Can we do that on the next?
Well, it depends on if this motion that's on the floor passes. If it does, then he's your mayor pro tem.
Any other discussion?
Brandon, would you like to be considered in mayor pro tem?
If that's what the council agrees on, then that would be fine. But if they want to go ahead and go with Leslie, that's perfectly fine as well.
Call roll.
Counselor Briones?
No.
Counselor Wynn?
Yes.
Counselor Sines? Counselor Conlon?
Yes.
Counselor Meyer?
No. My motion or my vote is going to be based on, I guess, more of a discussion. So, but we can put it on the next agenda to discuss.
Motion fails.
Yes, sir.
So it should be listed just for the information next time, just for the appointment of the mayor pro tem without the name listed on the agenda, and then you can nominate.
And that's what we did in the last fiscal, or last year.
Item number 9, consideration of possible action to give staff direction in regard to Kenedy Volunteer Fire Department budget. Movement.
I make a motion to consider agenda item number 8, or number 9, I'm sorry.
Second?
I'll second that.
Discussion. Justin, you made a motion. What would you?
This is in regard to what?
Fire Department budget, giving the staff direction to
I
build the
know.
budget.
There was something in the packet, so I didn't know if there was anything to go along with it.
Brenda, anything?
I didn't know what we got. Was there something else that we needed to know about that? There wasn't anything included in our packet on that.
There was just discussion whether or not we still had a local services agreement with them. But after I had an opportunity to talk to Dan more about it, Dan had some ideas that he just actually implemented. And Fall City just implemented theirs as well, so it can't be that difficult. If a small town can do it, we can do it. So I think we're okay. We just need to amend our ordinance to be able to encompass everything with the fire department. So we're good.
This doesn't mean that they won't get a budget.
No, they'll get a budget.
Correct?
They're going to get a
Okay.
budget.
Okay, just if I might, Mayor. And I spoke with Councilman Briones about this as well. I know it's been a concern for some time. Volunteer fire departments are an odd animal in a sense because they're typically a 501c3. I understand the one here is not currently, it doesn't currently have its 501c3 status, but they receive donations They also receive funding through the county, through your fire, your rural fire, and then also from the city. And then the city has a role in carrying insurance often on vehicles, and sometimes even the owner of vehicles. Because of those things, best practices are that you have an overarching services agreement with the volunteer fire department, between the department and the city, and that volunteer fire department submit a budget, just like departments of the city would, for those portions of their funds that are public funds. So that would be the funding that comes through the county or through the city. So that would be when the item comes back, that would be my recommendation, that it be, you have a chapter in your code of ordinances to deal with fire and fire services and fire safety, that we consider amending sections of that to outline what service within the city should look like, or the standards, whatever minimum standards that you want to set. And then it also requires a services agreement between, can't be interlocal because they're not a governmental entity, so it has to be a services agreement within the municipal boundaries. Because your service area typically goes outside the municipal boundaries, so this is just dealing with services within the city.
So it's amending the ordinance in order for them to submit the budget to the city?
It's just best practices. It's not required to amend the budget for them to submit that to the city, but it would require them to submit that to the city and require them to have a services agreement with the city. So there are other things that, I apologize, Councilman Meyer, there would be other things that were within that ordinance or within that code amendment, but the idea is to establish minimum standards for fire service within the city, regardless of if it's this volunteer fire department or some other department that acts within your boundaries. It's the same chapter where you've adopted the fire code.
Okay.
So it's just a little bit more detailed than that, and I'm happy to. It might be something that y'all need to look over, discuss, and it might be more than one meeting that you go through. That it took us several months in Fall City to kind of hammer out all the details between the volunteer fire department and the city council.
Barbara, did you have anything?
They do have an attorney working on their 501c3. I've talked to him quite a few times. Real nice gentleman. I guess Juan Gito over here somewhere.
Yeah, Juan's in back.
And that's who will be handling that part of their Yes, you have an attorney, I said.
Yes.
That's supposedly working on your 501c3, correct?
Well, actually, we're trying to do the contract y'all were asking for.
Well, Dan said we could make this simpler. We just need to simplify things and get this moving so we can get an agreement in place. That's all I want to do.
He said until we get the agreement y'all want. And then we'll work on it.
So Dan's saying it's fairly easy to do that. Will you give that to Mr. Wilson?
Barbara, if somebody gives you some direction on, say, build a budget, does that help you at all? I mean, because it's right around the corner.
Right,
Can we
I
build a
just want to make
budget?
sure that we can fully fund the fire department. I mean, they need to be funded, they need to be covered. You're covered under TML, we got that done, that's all in the budget, everything's in the budget. But I just want to make sure that we fund them properly.
So in this portion, it would just be a budgetary request from the volunteer fire department to the city to help you with the budgetary
But now that
process.
Dan has given me the guidance on the ordinance and some of the agreements, he started providing these for me after the confusion over the agreement. We can amend the ordinance to make this simpler, is that correct? So we don't need to do anything. The budget I can do, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
So this is just giving
But we still
you,
need an agreement between the city
We
and
still
fire
need that
department.
agreement. I need the agreement. That will help tremendously getting that agreement in place. I just want to make sure they're funded properly. It's not coming back to us, well, you don't have an agreement with them, but you're funding them. So we do need to get all that agreement in order, and then we'll be good. But Dan has some different ideas, I just told y'all that. But I didn't know that until I talked to Dan and he looked at the code of ordinances where we could amend stuff.
so this is just giving you direction to get all that in order so you can bring it back and let us know what we're doing.
Right,
As far as
I just want to make sure they're budgeted properly.
So what do you want from us tonight?
We don't need to do anything.
Okay.
It's just staff direction.
Yes, I want to make sure that I can get that agreement in place for these guys.
If you need me, call you out. Call you.
Yeah, that's just one time I email address, if you could reach out, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Juan. Item number 10, Update in regard to the application of the city of Kenedy to amend the water certificate of convenience and necessity in Karnes County. Can we move it?
It's just an update.
Oh, my bad.
It's in your package, so the CCN has been requested. And there's a copy in your package for you to review, so you know what the CCN is. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me.
Do you guys have any questions for her on the CCN?
That's good.
Okay.
And this gets us all in compliance, correct?
Yes, that was at Evergreen's direction.
Do you have any questions? Brandon? Everybody's good?
Yes, sir.
Does the CCN currently have in place, correct?
Yes, it's in place, correct. It's just passed in place.
Item number 11, consideration of possible action, amending the City of Kenedy Code of Ordinances, Chapter 18, Business Regulations by adding Article 7, Regulation of Gaming Machines, amending Article 3, Fee Schedule, to add Section 14-65 by providing a permit fee, providing definitions, providing for a penalty, providing for repealing, severability, and saving clauses, and providing for publication and an effective date. Any movement on that?
Make a motion to consider item 11.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
So can you give us an overall update of the major updates within this ordinance?
Dan probably can. If you read through it, it has.
Well, I read through it, but we didn't put in, there's no dollar.
Yeah. We definitely have.
Right. And
That's more of a legal question than a
yes.
private question.
And
So are we gonna decide that today on the dollar amount?
If you guys read the ordinance, what it looked like, I think that you need to go through it and see if there's things that you were specifically happy with in there, specifically not happy, what kind of numbers that you would like to put in there. That's gonna be solely up to you.
I'm opposed to an ordinance at this point.
Should we table this for next month?
well, what was, I know that you, Chief Ash, and there's one other person, was it Amanda or somebody else that were gonna get together and work together in the last council meeting?
Aldolfo.
Aldolfo.
But Dan's here today.
Okay. Do you represent other cities that face the same issues we face?
So I think what would be beneficial, honestly, for me, and maybe for the council and public, is why are we regulating this? What's the motivation behind this, and what are we trying to accomplish with it? Because, reading through the ordinance, this is an ordinance that we have in place in other cities, and it's basically establishing, separation requirements, operational requirements, permitting requirements, and establishing fees that they pay to operate these sites. So if what we're trying to do is decrease the number of these by, having separation requirements or distance requirements from certain other types of establishments, typically what the chief would add to the conversation would be, what are the secondary impacts that they're having on the community, right? I mean, that's when you choose to regulate, whether it's gaming or SOBs or anything such as that, is typically because you're experiencing secondary negative impacts within your community.
Correct.
And
so the secondary impacts in our cases can range from illegal gambling, can range from drugs. Chief Ash, you have any other knowledge of other, in a not open investigation, but what have you noticed now being here have been secondary impacts with these gaming halls?
So any of these, in general, these type of businesses, once you have an illegal type of business, it will generate other illegal activities. They just follow along. Alcohol, drugs, those kind of things follow along.
Also,
The problem we have in this, with the ones we have now, is that access is almost impossible. They're doing memberships, they're locking the doors, these kind of things, so we can't just, you don't really have access to them. But that would be my concern, if we had some way that we could regulate it and have access.
And this does do that. This would require them to allow access to city officials.
The city officials, as in city manager?
I think this one said police or city official.
And is that like full access throughout the building to make sure that they're in
Trying to get
compliance?
to that section. I'm don't know that it's limited. Also requires unobstructed windows, it has to be transparent, you be able to view it throughout. It does require background checks at their expense.
And is that just background checks of the person pulling the permit, the person, the owner, or all employees of that establishment?
All employees, everybody that's employed there.
Because I know we discussed that last time.
Yeah, everybody that's, what it said was everybody that was employed there, everybody that is owner, it also owner and the person that owns the building.
Okay. That was another question.
I believe there's a lot more work that the city, us, legislature, and administration and the police department need to do before we tackle this ordinance. I really truly do.
It's a pretty extensive ordinance. There's a lot in this ordinance. But on the other side of the coin, we need to do something to, it's great to have the game rooms if somebody enjoy that as a pastime, but to have an entity that we're daily allowing to break the law. I mean, the game rooms are supposed to give out non-cash prizes. And that's not what's happening. And we all know that's not what's happening. And we hold the chief's foot to the fire to say, you know, let's get the burglary down, get the robbery down, get the theft down. You want him to fix this stuff, but we've got to do something so that the environment that we've created, because all that, a lot of that is an offshoot of that environment. You get somebody that wants to play the game, they're going to steal something and sell it and get the money and go play. That's what gamblers do. They do whatever it takes to get the money to play.
And I don't think that, Leslie, I don't think you're talking about every single person visiting these gaming halls.
No, I'm not.
But after time and time again, it keeps happening over and over again. They get busted, they close, they reopen back up with a new owner or a new person with a permit, and these illegal activities keep going on. And so now that you kind of hear some, and I'm not saying everybody's opinion, but you've heard some of our opinions, in a legal way, how can we either A, get this back going in a direction of clean gaming or clean non-gambling gaming devices, or how do we try to prevent the illegal activity from happening, in your opinion?
Right, well, I think this would be a good start, but there's elements of this that you would know better than I would in your city what is the right answer. So, for example, on location requirements and hours of operation. So in this ordinance, the hours of operation are suggested 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. That's something that, you know, this council can adjust. There's nothing about that is required. Shall not operate within 300-foot radius of an established church, school, daycare, or hospital, or within 2,000-foot radius of another amusement redemption machine game room. 2,000-foot radius of another game room, I don't know how many you have here. So without you putting that on a map or having your staff put that on a map and draw that radius, you might want to know exactly what you're passing as far as where the existing ones are, and how, once you do these 300-foot radius circles, to see how many you're going to basically, they're already operating, so there's going to be an amortization period, but they won't be able to operate indefinitely. And I'd have to double check to see if Adolfo drafted this. I apologize, I did not draft it, but I have to see if he put an amortization provision in the ordinance. Typically, it's not, you know, you shut down immediately once it's passed. There's a right to operate until you can amortize whatever your investment is. That's the most, that's the example I see. It is going to allow access, which sounds like that's going to be a critical need and something that is desired by the council and the chief. And it requires the permit and renewals of the permit. And the permit can be pulled if you are found to be in violation of this ordinance. Your permit can be revoked.
So then the committee that, sat down and thought about this, what is the recommendation?
So that's what we're talking about, is limiting the machines. Now, like if you look in there, it says a limit of 25 machines. I mean, most of these places are huge places. I know Desperados just sold to a game room. Somebody came in and applied for a certificate of occupancy for the game room, and I can't remember. I just saw it though. I can't remember. So, and I know there's another one that opened up, and I don't even think maybe they opened, the little blue house by the post office. They just pop up everywhere because we don't have anything on them. Now the fee-wise, that would be up to you guys to set because it's an ordinance.
And the fee cannot be, I'm not going to bore you with case law, but there's established cases and things that when you establish fees, they can't be punitive, they can't be such that you're trying to
discriminate or whatever towards
exactly, so that they can't operate at all. So that's just something to keep in mind. And if we get to that point, you want to have that discussion, I do have some information on that. So.
I just want to make certain that this council's not sitting up here making these rules and we're up in these game rooms gambling, because gambling is illegal.
Absolutely.
And I do have videos and I do have pictures, and I want to see who raises their hand and when I'll visit with the chief, because it's wrong. Trying to make a new ordinance and we're participating, it is wrong.
Yes, sir.
That is wrong. You cannot receive money from those game rooms, sit up here and be for or against a game room ordinance. We need to be more honest with ourselves up here. That's what we need to do.
Are you talking about me?
Could be.
You are.
Could be.
I think we should just, table this and keep looking at this ordinance and look on it some more, get more information.
Let me just say something. If you want to be honest, I didn't put this item on the agenda, but I know you're going around town telling people that I'm the one that wants to close the game rooms down.
Okay.
I've heard it.
Are you opposed to closing the game room?
I'm not opposed to closing the game rooms, but I think with something like this in place, I think that, it might could work. I don't know, but only time will tell.
Would you still gamble?
I don't gamble. I haven't gambled, and if I have, I haven't done it since I've been elected or even running. But if I wanted to leave this meeting right now and go, it would be my right, but I choose not to.
You're going to throw all again.
Well, like I said, I choose not to.
So I think we should table and keep looking at this and maybe get some more information from you as far as what other cities done and get kind of looking at this more closely to make sure that we do it right for our city. I think that's the best recommendation at this point, kind of look at it some more and kind of decide what we want to do. Maybe come back and do a workshop on it and kind of look at it a little bit closer.
So would you like to see examples of the fees being charged?
We saw in our last meeting, City of Cuero and City of Carson City, two of their past ordinances. They're pretty similar. The fee schedules were just a little bit differently. I think what I would like to see is hopefully the committee can meet one more time and create what the committee thinks is a best proposed ordinance for the city of Kenedy. Then bring it back to the city council, present it, say this is why we want to do it, and this is why we think it's good. I think it's kind of clear that the council has said, these are the reasons why we need a sticker ordinance to prevent the illegal activity from happening. So if in the next meeting, if we could have a proposed, filled out, completed ordinance, and if it can be clearly discussed to us, why we did this, that way we can contemplate, discuss it that night, and then move forward if the council does want to approve it or does not want to approve it.
Okay, and there were some limits in this where you guys would pay by the limits of limiting games. Now, in Carson City, they limited the number of games even allowed. Like, are you interested in doing something like that? Before I keep, I don't want to keep bringing it back here. That was a Carson City thing. Cuero, I'm not sure what they did. I can't remember.
Right.
So I think you need the map to see where they fall within the exclusion zones, so you'll know what you're eliminating.
And I know, like in the Central Business District, there's no gaming machines.
Which is where?
Downtown. And it's for some reason, it goes from
First Street
is not part of downtown.
First Street through Fifth Street. It's Main Street, 1st through 5th, from Block 1 to Block 5. and one block back is considered the central business
So that
district.
blue one over by the post office would be in that group.
Correct.
And the
I
one.
don't think so.
And the one.
Yeah, I think it's right on the edge.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Because it's right behind the
I think
And
it's
what
chamber.
about the one on First Street?
Which one?
Oh, the one on the other side of the.
Regardless, grocery used to be.
Where the gym, that was
The
on
gray
that
building?
corner too.
Yeah, I'm uncertain about that.
Oh, you're talking about behind the fern.
You know what, and Amber said something, we can let it through zoning as well.
You don't have to have this be an allowable use in any district. I mean, that's another option. If you don't want these in your central business district, then don't make it an allowable use. Define it in your zoning ordinance that gaming establishments are not allowed as a use in the central business. Aside of part, this is permitting, right? This is operational. This is telling you how you can operate and where you can operate. But if you simply do not want them in a particular zone, you don't have to allow them.
You talked about it.
About,
We were talking about that. Did you say something else?
I haven't seen it.
I think there's more stuff to consider before we pass this, and there's more we have to look at.
Yeah, because we want it to work, and we want it to be, once we put it in place, we want it to be something that our policing body can police. We don't want to put it in place and then have some loophole, like we got, it must be some kind of loophole right now because they're getting away with it. And somebody missed something.
Who said something about memberships? Who was that? The chief. Is that something that they're doing now too?
Yeah, they block the doors and they don't let you in. You have to get a membership card.
Oh, you can get in if you need to get in, chief, you know that.
Yeah.
If you need to get in, you get in.
Yeah.
I mean, heck,
But it's not,
if they can break into your house and steal your stuff, you can get in there and do what you
it's
got.
not like we can just wander in and,
No, sir.
And I know part of the ordinance that we spoke about last time, and it was something Chief had brought up, is confiscating the equipment too in the event of a raid. I don't know if this identifies it in this ordinance.
Nuisance abatement.
well, if the machines, and Chief, chime in, please. So if the machines are operating in violation of the penal code, which, then certainly, I mean, that's different.
they'd be considered evidence in a crime, so yeah.
That's how they do things.
Anything else, guys?
So this is more of a quote-unquote staff direction, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And we can tighten those numbers, we can do all that stuff, just as long as it's not punitive and as long as it's permitting. Now, if y'all want to tell me there's something about planning and zoning, that as well, that'd be something to go before the planning and zoning board. And then it would come before you guys. I mean, you have that option.
Well, I think it'd be good for the three of y'all to get together to get the criminal policing side through Chief Ash, you as the city manager to go through and make the best recommendation for the city, and then the attorney go through and make sure what is being compiled together is legal and is not violating or not being discriminative through fees or other various reasons.
I'm good by that.
Okay. I'm good with that too.
I mean, if that's what you want me to do.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. What do you want to do with the item, guys?
We have to table it.
Okay, motion to table?
I'll second that.
No, I need a motion.
Oh.
I'll make a motion to table.
I'll second it.
Call roll.
Counselor Brianna?
Yes.
Counselor Wood?
Yes.
Counselor Science?
Yes.
Counselor Kano?
Yes.
Counselor Meyer?
Yes.
Motion tabled. Item number 12, pursuant to section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code, the city of Kenedy will consider a closed session with its attorney to receive legal advice regarding pending or contemplated litigation, settlement offer, a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas disciplinary rule of professional conduct of the state law of Texas clearly conflicts with the act, to include the following matters. A, water utility charges. Any movement?
I'll make a motion that we go into closed session.
I'll second.
Counselor Briones?
Yes.
Counselor Wynn?
Yes.
Counselor Sines?
Yes.
Counselor Kona?
Yes.
Counselor Meyer?
Yes.
All in favor?
This time we're going to closed session. And you know, take your Seven 7:44, we're gonna reconvene in the open session. Item number A, water utility charges. What do you want to do with that?
I would like to make a motion that we give staff direction to start issuing settlements with the multi-user accounts involved in this case.
Call roll, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Motion by Justin, second by Brenda.
Counselor Briones?
Yes.
Counselor Wynn?
Yes.
Counselor Sines?
Yes.
Counselor Kona?
Yes.
Counselor Meyer?
Yes.
All in favor?
Motion passes. Thank you, Judge. Item number 13, pursuant to section 551.074, personnel matters of the Texas Government Code and under the provisions of the City of Kenedy Code of Ordinances and Personnel Policies, the City of Kenedy will meet in closed session to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of the following public officers for employees or employees. Public officers and employees may choose to have personnel matters discussed in public. Item A, to receive input and recommendation from the city manager in accordance with the City Code of Ordinances and Personnel Policy regarding the evaluation, duty, and salary of Chief of Police Richard Ash. B, to receive input and recommendations from the city manager in accordance with the City Code of Ordinances and Personnel Policy regarding the evaluation, duty, and salary of City Secretary Amanda Hines. C, to provide input and recommendations to City Manager Barbara Nivers-Shaw in accordance with the Local Government Code, City Code of Ordinances, and Personnel Policy regarding her annual performance evaluation, possible employment, contract terms, duties, and salary. Any movement?
I have a question. Can we, when we do these evaluations with the Texas Local Government Code, are we allowed to do these without the appointed official in closed session to create an unbiased evaluation?
So the way these work is that other than conversations with legal counsel, it's completely up to the employee. So you can have that discussion in closed session absolutely without the employee present, but they have a right to say, no, you're not going to do that. You're going to have the entire thing in open session. It's their choice.
Any movement?
So we need a motion. Well, I guess we need a decision from you all. Do you want it closed
No,
session?
we need a motion. If nobody wants to talk about it, we just bypass it. So, you know what I mean? If nobody makes a motion, that means nobody up here wants to discuss it. And we just move on to the next item. But if you do want to talk about it, you can make a motion and somebody else can second and then we're forced to talk about it.
I'll make a motion that we consider agenda item 13.
Okay, we're going to discuss it now. Item A. Chief Ash.
Okay, so, you read that we're going into closed session, and so it's really, I'm sorry?
It's up to him.
That's correct, but he needs to let it, if he wants this in open session.
Yes, totally up to you, sir.
Yes, I'm fine with open session.
Okay, sounds good. Motion was made by you, we'll start with you.
Okay.
Discussion?
Amanda provided me with the employee evaluation. that we used last year. It's just the City of Kenedy Employment Evaluation, and it's based off 15 characteristics, and through that you rank from 1 to 10. The way I viewed this evaluation is I started everybody off at a 5. If I saw good traits that you're doing in that department, then you shifted one direction or you'll shift right or left. So, for example, let's go, like, for example, creativity, number 3. It says, creativity, the talent of having new ideas, for finding new and better ways of doing things, and for being imaginative. So I started you off at a 5, I rated you at a 7. Frequently suggest new ways of doing things is very imaginative. I think that at the end of my evaluation personally, there's additional comments. In those comments, it reads, Chief Ash has done a great job in adapting in the change of environment and community. He has been faced with some challenging issues that will need to be addressed, such as illegal gambling, unsolved cases, and other unique issues. An area of improvement that I think can improve on is creating a better working relationship with outside and surrounding agencies. Overall, he has done a good job, and I expect to have him to have done great things by the time this time next year. His evaluation score was an 89.
Okay, I'm gonna stop right there.
Sure.
I'm not sure why we would believe that we're supposed to evaluate the chief.
He is appointed by the
Yes,
city
but we
council.
relinquish that authority to the city manager by statute and by ordinance. That's her employee, she should be evaluated, and not us. Same thing for Amanda.
Okay, so then why did we do one on Barbara and Amanda last year?
I can't answer that. I just know that we were to receive input and recommendations, and I said, we'll start with you. I didn't know there was a evaluation.
Yes, this is the same evaluation we did for those 2 appointed officials. Chief Ash is also an appointed official by this council.
Right.
Exactly.
But he's not, you've relinquished that authority to the city manager. And also, he hasn't even been through his probationary period.
Okay.
So it's actually, I think
You did an evaluation on him after a couple months in, I think it was February or March.
Oh, no, we didn't do an evaluation, we had a discussion with him.
He didn't do anything. He just had some questions, he had a list of things that he talked to him about.
Right. So just for the record, is that right or is that wrong then?
So the way, well, I think it's more complicated than right or wrong, because the way your code is set up, you do appoint the police chief and you do appoint the city secretary, but it's on the way it's reads, it's on recommendation of the city manager. And then in the personnel policy, the mayor's correct that the council has empowered the city manager to be the head of the organization when it comes to all personnel matters and all supporting employees. And it says that she makes those decisions with the consent of the council. Okay. So however we interpret that, And so when I was asked to put this item together, that's why it's written the way it is, because it's kind of both of you have a role in how this works, and it's up to you how you put that in action, I suppose.
So it's a working together. Okay. I mean, we represent, each of us represents a district. Besides yourself, you represent the citizens in this city. And we have an every 2-year evaluation. Are we doing our jobs correctly? Is the majority of the citizens happy with our job? And so with that, I see the appropriateness of the employees that we appoint, that we're evaluating them. They know our expectations and levels of improvements that we see fit, and how are they going to do better if they don't hear from us. And there's no way for us to publicly do that without placing it on the agenda. So if Barbara has input too, the way it's worded, she can input as well. Let's collaborate together and work together.
Yeah, but see, that's the problem. We can't just change the policies and go along. This is already set in place. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, that's what has been going on in the city of Kenedy, Texas for 40, 50 years.
Nobody's changing the rules or policy. And just last year, like the city attorney just said, we are, like the attorney was saying, but just last year, August, I think it was, somebody placed that on there, it wasn't me. And so it had to have been, Barbara, was it you?
It was me, because nobody asked for it, it was budget time.
Okay, and so she placed on there for Amanda to be evaluated by the council as well, and we did that.
I understand that, but this is this year and we're not gonna do it.
I asked
She
her.
hasn't recommended that to us, Justin. She just told me she recommended it last year for the budget season.
But we never even formally did an evaluation. That was dismissed because we weren't here for a year.
I understand what was done last year. I'm just telling you that
Legally, are we allowed to do this, what we're talking about right now? My question is, are we allowed to evaluate the 3 appointed officials that we have in conjunction with Barbara, and then are we allowed to evaluate Barbara?
You're allowed to receive input and recommendations from city manager in accordance with your code of ordinances and personnel policy regarding the evaluation duties and salary. Yes. And that's why it's very intentional the way it's worded, because whatever action you take and whatever input you receive from her and whatever you give back needs to be in accordance with what y'all have adopted as far as your code and your personnel policy. Nobody made the city council delegate authority, right? I mean, so the city, I understand it was a council before y'all, right? But at some point in time, the council said, we don't want to mess with this. We want the city manager to do this. I mean, there was a point in time when Kenedy didn't have a city manager. You would have had a city administrator. And even before that, you probably didn't even have that, when it was really small. So at some point in time, though, once that was created, because it doesn't exist in the local government code, it's not an officer that's listed. City manager, city administrator for a type A general law municipality is not in the local government code. So the only way you can have that position and then empower that position is to pass a local ordinance. And that's what Kenedy did. And at some point in time, he became a manager form of government, perhaps. I've never seen the election data on that. It requires an election. So it's posted the way it's posted because I tried to accommodate the fact that you have delegated some of that authority, but not all of it, right? You still have, she's the city secretary, right? So she still has to, any removal of that city secretary has to comply with the local government code. And so Barbara cannot arbitrarily remove that city secretary without the consent of the council, which is why it says with the consent of the council. Does that make sense?
Right.
And so I believe you can do what you're doing the way you're doing it. Perhaps that's for y'all to decide if you're doing it in accordance with your policies and your code.
Is it time for a evaluation on that? You said he's still in his probation.
Yeah, he's still in probation.
So,
When will his evaluation be up? What does it say in the policies? Does it a year from the date that's hired, 6 months? When it comes to observation, what?
He's on probation in 6 months, that doesn't mean, if you're asking me for my input, it's interesting. Okay, tell you? He's done an amazing job. The guy's been going fire. When we first got him here, the first thing we started was this Mayor Fest. And I don't know if you guys saw or how that went or whatever, but he did a tremendous job with Mayor Fest. That was the first time I've ever seen a command center in Kenedy, Texas. I saw one in Fort Lauderdale on spring break. But we had a command center in Kenedy, Texas. He was videoing everything. He was watching everything. He had people in there. He had people in place. He had officers all over this place, and they were taking care of business. Kenedy PD did an outstanding job. I was very, very, very impressed. He's got thrown in this game room ordinance. He's got thrown in the middle of numerous personal issues, personal messes. And, you guys sent me to go hire him. And when we hired him, what was it, in November, right? Was it December, somewhere in there? December 31st was his hire date. December 31st was his hire date. That's when Bratton was transitioning out. And hiring a chief of police is not near as easy as you think. We hired some of the best to help us. We hired Max Westbrook and Associates, and we had 3 chiefs of police and an FBI agent sitting on that board. And still, the task was just ridiculous. And what this man went through to get hired was an in basket and out basket. And he did an amazing job on him, and that's why he's here. My theory of a chief of police, and I told him this during the interview, is who would I put my daughter in a car with? That's how I always try to figure out what would be the best of the best for that. And Ash passed all the tests. He's done a good job.
in conjunction with Justin, has to say, yes, he's still new, he has a lot of things, people learn and everything else. But for him being here in the short time that he's been here, he's made amazing strides. I've had businesses come in and compliment him to me about they find little stickers in their doors that he's out checking doors at night, or his officers are out checking doors at night. Yes, I've had people say other things too, but it's always going to be like that. The job that he's doing, Chief Ash is doing an amazing job. I'm very comfortable with our choice, and I'm very comfortable with it.
I'm the most difficult critic on the police department, especially Chief Ash. I'm quick to bust him up real good on the small things, and it's because I've set a standard so high, but he's reaching those. He's bringing community policing back to us, and that's the truth. Small town community policing. Something that's been missing from this community for a very long time. And I know we laughed and we giggled about the trading parts, but you know what? That's a dang good idea. And we laughed because we didn't have anything to do with it. We wish we would have had something to do with it. That's why we're laughing. But he's done good. And I do like the stickers on the door. And I've emailed you that before.
Yes, sir.
So we appreciate that.
He checks in regularly, lets us know what's going on. I don't feel like we have any surprises from him. I mean, he kind of says, it happened, I'm dealing with it, and he deals with it. But I have nothing negative to say. I think we can all grow and we can all develop in some ways, but he's been amazing for our staff. Anybody else?
I'm glad he's here. And, I did the evaluation, but I'm not going to go through the evaluation. I can tell you, I rated your total overall score, I think, was 114.
Out of 100.
100. Out of 115, 115 was your overall score, which meant that you met expectations. I'm from an environment of doing evaluations. I don't like this kind of form of doing evaluation because I think an evaluation should be something that's done with that individual face to face. That way you can have some conversations. But you're doing a good job, and we as a community appreciate you doing what you're doing, showing up where you show up, doing what you have to do, trying to find officers and training them and growing them to the point that they can do the things that you want them to do. So I'm a happy guy. I'm a happy council person.
I didn't do the evaluations. I didn't think it was fair to do it yet for you because you haven't been here long enough yet. But there is some great things. The trading cards are great. My son loved to look at them and get to know people. Oh, that was great. My husband thought it was great too. But you were out there for Mail Fest. Your people were out there. You turned the corner. There was a police officer there. It was great. It was amazing. I think you're doing a great job. Keep up the good work. You can anything from us, let us know.
I agree with Brenda. I didn't do the evaluation either. I didn't think it was fair, but I was asking when is the right time for the evaluation. You're learning as every day comes along. You're learning something different. I've been in contact with you at least every other day. We talk, we text, I get information that I need from you. And I've seen the patrol officers out more than I've ever seen in the last 5 years. I go somewhere in the evening, I'll cross the cop. They'll be at a store. They're doing what they can to protect the city, and that, I haven't seen that in years, and I appreciate that. And just want to say, continue the great work.
And one of the things that we were complimented really, really heavy on at Manifest was that KPD was individually everywhere. They were not in a group. And KCPD was the same way. I was down there, we were down there working that crowd control. And I mean, back there on that other side where the entertainers were, that was some deep, there was a lot of people, and there was people wanting to get to them and take pictures and be with them. And those guys worked crowd control amazingly.
Did you have snipers on the roofs? They were everywhere. I mean, people were everywhere. It would be surprising.
I can either confirm or deny.
That's why we had to hire you.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Miss Brother with the scope.
That's right.
A little red dots didn't mean anything.
Can I just say, Chief, that I did rate you pretty high. I think you're exceeding every expectation. And just talking with the officers, morale has been wonderful. Communication, wonderful. If I call you, you return my call, email, same thing. So I appreciate the job.
And we'll work on the burglaries. I mean,
Go be careful.
Everything can't be great.
That's right. Gotta give it, it's been 5 minutes, give me a whole minute.
No, we're good? Okay. Item B. Barbara, same situation here. To receive input and recommendation from the city manager in accordance with the city code of ordinances and personnel policy of I'm sorry guys, regarding the evaluation, duties, and salary of the city secretary, Amanda Hines. Amanda, what would you like to do, ma'am?
I would like to continue my own position, please.
Okay. Let's hear it, Robert.
You want me to go first? Amanda goes above and beyond her duties. I mean, if she needs to be there on a weekend, she's here on a weekend. If she needs to be there after hours, she's here after hours. She knows this budget like the back of her hand. She knows the policy manual like the back of her hand. We stay in that policy manual. We stay in budget. And she's an ideal employee. She does everything that's asked of her, plus more. She has a lot of, she wears a lot of hats. And sometimes, you know, when we have a small office like us, and this was a really hard year on Amanda and I because Amanda went on maternity leave. And we're a 2-person office, okay? You take half of our office away, and that's difficult. We didn't hire a temp. We didn't hire, and yeah, things got messed up. Things got astray. Human resources got, but it was because we did not internally hire a temporary, or we didn't do anything like that. You know, you think back now, and it's like, you know what, maybe we should have hired a temp, or we should have hired something for somebody to come in here and kind of help out. Karen went out of her way to help out. Karen did, you know, she came in extra hours, she did extra stuff. Same thing like Judy's done before in the past, you know? Did y'all work with Judy? I don't think so. No? Okay. I can't remember. And so, she does everything she's supposed to do. And we end up working a lot of weekends, or a lot, because we have a lot of issues going on with payroll, with leaks, with sewer. I mean, the other night we're all on Boone Street looking out, not Amanda, but I was out there with the employees. Mayor had come out there. And we're trying to, you know, plan all these great projects, do all these great things, and we'll get into those a little bit in depth and a little bit more. And sometimes it's really, really hard because we think that we're keying in on one specific aspect of something and then something else happens. And it's kind of the same thing with TCQ, sometimes it's popcorn surprises, you know? We can't, these are things out of our control, these are things we can't control.
Are you happy with the service you provide to the city?
Very.
Does anybody else want to?
I additionally do want to say that Amanda has improved, and I've noticed it with not only myself, but with citizens and various taxpayers. I put in here, she also has continued to always keep a professional manner with myself upon even maybe a few different opinions that we might have. I said, now with constructive criticism, because I did this to everybody, one thing I would like to see Amanda growing on, I said, as an appointed public official, I would like to see her grow with even more knowledge and help alleviate citizens with concerns when brought to her. And then lastly, I said, I would like to thank Amanda for her continued growth.
You know, and I did want to bring up, because like, it was not overlooked about that pamphlet earlier. Councilman Meyer brought that to my attention. He asked me to come to a resolution. Him and I actually resolved it on the phone. And that's what we agreed to go with. And Amanda knows about it, and it's all getting fixed with specific hours. Where did Dan go? Because Dan was the one that brought up the specific hour thing. And so we can make things easier on people, so where it's not like popcorn on our staff too.
Right, but before we go fixing that, there's some other things we'll have to talk about on that item. The collection station period.
I understand. We have a lot going on East Main. We have a lot going on Warning. I mean, it's a heavy traffic congestion area right now.
What I will say, from your score from last year to your score from this year, it has improved. And I'm happy to see it.
Anyone else?
I'm sorry. I didn't do the evaluation, but I did think that we were supposed to, it was supposed to lean on Barbara to do it. But I'm gonna go with Justin, that you're doing, things are looking good, you know, you've improved some. I know I can call you and ask you a question, you got an answer for me. So that's great. You know, keep up the good work. Just keep doing what you're doing. Thank you.
I gave you an overall score of 118, which meet expectations. And also, one thing that I wanted to highlight is we've had an audit, a very extensive audit, and it was amazing. There was we were in such good shape as a city. Our numbers were like they should be, or better in every category, not in just some, but in all of them. And that's the role that she's in. She has to keep all that stuff in line and making sure that it is moving and going where it's supposed to go and what's supposed to be done with it. And that's your city secretary. That's what she does every day. And then Bob will run the city. She does a great job.
And one of the things you asked about, Leslie, I want to add to that with that audit. When they picked a month, Amanda and I sit here with our fingers crossed. What did we say? No August, September, October, right? What did they come up with? August. They come up with a month Amanda was out. First month I went. The very first month she went. I was like, please don't pick one of those months Amanda's gone. But
anyone else?
Well, I gotta say, Amanda's doing a great job. I mean, she keeps the city going. People need help, they come to her. I've heard a lot of great things about her. I did the evaluation and gave her a 133 out of everything. And she continues to help people, and you can see hearing great things about the city. And every year it seems to get better and better. She stays and works hard, stays late. She has any questions, she's not afraid to ask, and a lot of communication has always been open, and for that, I appreciate that, and just continue the great work.
Thank you.
Same here, Amanda, you are doing a good job. Some improvements can be made, and the only thing that I can see is maybe updating the website.
We've actually started updating it, because we're actually redoing the whole website, so we're kind of waiting for the redo to happen. And it's just taking a little bit longer than expected, so we went ahead and just updated it.
And that's fine. And just another thing, if the city manager is out, maybe try not to be out on the same day, it rarely happens, but just to be available for customers.
We try our hardest for not that to happen.
In the event. Other than that.
I'm going to close with this. This time last year, I had heard a discussion, okay, and nobody wanted to say anything. I hear it everywhere, so I said, I'm going to say it. I'm going to find out. I'm going to get to the bottom of it. And I don't use the word "I" very much, if you know me. So I came in and I said, I believe Amanda is overpaid, and I said it to your face. And since then, I take that back, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. What these guys said is true. And I've seen it not just at Miles Fest, not just this week or that week. You've never ever once not offered to help me do anything that I need to help with. You've always done that, and I appreciate it. And the citizens, I'm telling you, they love it. So just continue. You're great. Thank you. Okay, anything else? No? Okay. C, to provide input and recommendations to City Manager Barbara and Ivor Shaw in accordance with the local government code, city code of ordinances, and personnel policy regarding her annual performance evaluation, possible employment contract terms, duties, and salary. Okay, who wants to move on that?
She has to say.
I'm fine with it.
Who would like to move?
I'm gonna get mine out the way, and then whoever else want to be next to go. Barbara, I gave you an overall 126. You know, when I came on to city council, it was sticker shock for me because of all the craziness that you can't do this and you got to do this out of here and this has got to come from here. You can't spend this money for this. You can't, so I had to learn all that stuff and watch Barbara deal with all the different things. We as a city, we need water. She's managed to get that done and move in a great direction. So we'll have good water for a long time to come. We were in so many violations with the sewer plant and with the water situation, and that's all coming online and being fixed. These are things that you have to have someone that is leading the charge in order for that to happen. It don't happen by osmosis. It happens because somebody is working hard, putting in the hours, and we are held here to fix so much that was not fixed before we got here. That wasn't our doing. We didn't create it. We're just the ones that's been tasked to fix it, and she's the one that has to lead the charge. So I am very pleased with your performance and very satisfied with your performance.
One of the things I want you to know, on the water deal, I think we're in a very good situation. Do you need one, Justin? You want one?
No,
You got
they
it.
just-
You got to.
You know, we went through some rejection during that, but now we're done. That's on file, the paperwork's all filed, and we're good. And we're working on the transmission lines now. We just had a big meeting in San Antonio. There were 13 people representing you. You might not have known that, but you had your appraisers were there, your right-of-way agents were there, your attorneys were there, your hydrologist was there, your engineer was there, Amanda and I were there, and amazing things happened in that room. We've got a bunch of stuff getting ready to come down the pipe to you that's going to be nothing but beneficial to Kenedy for years and years and years to come.
Anyone else?
I think that one of the things I have to point out is the lawyers have done a really good job in keeping things in track. Some of those things that are happening with this deal kind of go like this sometimes, you know what I'm saying? It gets snaky. And I think Dan and Megan are also for
Keeping the wolves at bay.
keeping the rules where they need to be.
So I did yours. I gave you a scroll 134. It is amazing to see the things. No, it's amazing to see the things that you do and the things that the hurdles that you have to get there. You know, we fought for this water. You got it. You know, we're fighting, like you said, all these fines and fees and things that are coming along, but you've been taking care of them. So it's amazing to see how much you get done. And I know you probably go home and think, oh my gosh, I just want to rest. I don't want to think about this city. And I know I call you late at night and ask you questions. You're like, oh, we're going to call me during work hours, but I appreciate that. You always have the answers when I have them. And if you don't, you always get back to me. So keep up with the work. I know it's hard. Do the things that you do with all the negative. There's a lot more positive. And all these nice things. And just keep going what you're doing. You're doing good. Keep working with the people. I think you're doing an amazing job. Hang in there. I know it gets hard. Very negative, but hang in there because you got our support. Okay?
And I want to thank you very, very much. And I want you to know, Brenda, after you call and go, what time did I? Brandon always gets so out.
I'm not a citizen.
I would just like to go by and say, Barbara, you did a fantastic job, and a lot of this has come up with the water, getting the water project done. You stayed tremendous hours working on it. You stayed afterwards as well with Amanda. I've seen y'all here beyond 5 o'clock. The job never ends. The city runs 24 hours a day. I'm sure you get lots of phone calls, like Brenda said. I call you sometimes. I'm sure Leslie and the rest of Justin and Student Cindy will be calling you too. If we start working together as a city, we'll be all working together to make this go forward. We've had the East Main project that's been going for years. It's finally rolling. You stayed on it. You're making sure that everything is getting taken care of. It's been a long time coming. Other projects are soon to be falling right behind it. Nottingham. We've had a lot of situations where everything can get pretty hectic. People being negative, people being not agreeing here and there. So you've overcome a lot of stuff. You're getting tired. That's a fact. And so you've been able to overcome a lot of obstacles, and it shows. When I did the evaluation, checked over this real good, rated you at a 135, so continue doing the work you're doing, and Kenedy can only go up from here unless the ball stops and starts going backwards, which is what we don't start seeing anytime soon. So just continue the great work, and we hope to continue doing business with you. So.
Thank you.
And as the majority of the council has agreed, I will have to say as well, as far as the city water project, that's a great job, and I commend that, I really do. And as far as, working with Hanson to get the infrastructure of having Hanson go in and get all the TCEQ violations where they need to be, that's been a great thing. I know one of Mayor Sutton's biggest thing, what has been, and it's been done is getting the infrastructure back to where it needs to be with the, you know, the 1920s and 1930s utility lines that we have in place. There's been issues, and you and I both know that. And when we did our evaluation last year, one of my biggest things that I told to you was you need to be able to work with people better. And we can go into closed session if you want to discuss in this closed session, but okay. And so one of my biggest things to you was you need to be able, you're an appointed official, but you're still the face of the city, just like the rest of us. There's been issues where I feel like, and I still feel this way, that there's been somewhat favoritism, and there's been staffing issues. Actually, in January, with somebody sitting up here, there was an issue where their belongings was left on that back porch, and I politely texted you and Amanda, and I asked you, could someone from the city, please pick up those items so that it didn't become a liability on the city. There was an email sent to Cindy, but there was no confirmation that she knew that her belongings were going to be left out there. There was no confirmation. And I just asked politely, and I even wished both of y'all would still have a great weekend, and it turned into this battle. And I need a city manager, for me, I need a city manager that I can trust. It shouldn't be a battle, it should be us working together, protecting our employees, our citizens, and the city of Kenedy together. And going back to it, you know, these projects that you've accomplished, that's a portion of your job. You do get paid a very high salary. That's a portion of your position. But also, there's a not necessarily a political side of it, but there is a side of this where you have to be a public official, someone that any citizen, it doesn't matter if it's your friend or not, can come to you with a concern or with a request, something to consider, and something for us to all consider as a group. You know, that goes into the personnel issues, the policy issues. That's something, you and I probably just would have had the same conversation, and it would have been exactly the same. I probably wouldn't have scored you higher. I would have just left you at where you were last year and said, you know, let's really look at this. It needs improvement. Two problems that I have, though, that I don't like to be tricked. And the reason that's a certain agenda item on tonight's agenda, number, what is it? Moving, 17. The one in regards to citizens' comments versus public comments. In that specific meeting, it was the second to last item before we adjourned. We all looked over it. Some of the discussion was, I remember a topic I brought up was there was no food or drinks in the council chambers. I'm like, well, that's not really fair. Like, we need to at least allow water. That's a fair situation. The citizens' comments versus public comments, or is it not on here? Because that's one that I asked you to put on there.
Wait a second. Yeah, I did put it on there.
Discussion and direction regarding the interpretation of citizen comments and adopted.
Right. Okay, so this is leading into my next comment. So in that specific meeting, the prior meeting when those rules and ordinances were adopted, it got passed, we all came to an agreement as a council, and we agreed to do it, and adjourned. As soon as that meeting adjourned, and I know it's on video because I've seen it, you dropped your head and you looked at me and you said, do you realize what you just approved? And in a blank face, thinking that I understood what was presented to us by you, I said yes. And you said, well, I guess you saw that it says citizens' comments now and not public comments. Now, since then, that has been addressed and not an issue. But I don't want to be tricked by anybody. I don't want to be lied to. Still, an issue that I feel like could have been fixed, it could have been brought up in this evaluation, and it all would have been done. But my biggest issue on all of this, and we heard from her tonight, is Sandra Lundquist. She was in public comments. She was fired based off a mistake that cost us a lot of money. And you know, I've told you this time and time again, I was very, very upset about this Civic Center. And it's not that I did not believe that the Civic Center could not be great. It was that this city should have done its due diligence. You as the city manager, when it was brought up, when I brought up to you, okay, here's this building. Are we going to have an inspection done? But because I've heard that it had black mold, I've heard that it's had a huge hole in its roof, that it's been leaking for years, and that's why it could not hold any businesses. And you said, no, Justin, I have walked the building with your mayor, and the roof's in good condition. And I also said, well, it's funny, because I've also heard that black mold was very prevalent in that building, and that was going to be an issue. No, Justin, it wasn't that bad. Following into that, I also said we should have engineering estimates done. We have engineers, Hanson, who works with us all the time. They could have gone in and evaluated it like they did post-purchase. Long story short, the convention, being convinced was to this council by a majority, and it passed. We spent $500,000 on that building. Then, going into this, Hanson was then asked to go in and assess the building. And in a public meeting, during a Hanson evaluation, they said, look, I could not even walk into the building because the black mold was so bad. Then I took my drone and showed us right up there on a projector, showing us a huge black hole where the ceiling was missing. And with all that being said, this could have been prevented. You as the city manager are our project manager in all these projects. Yes, these projects that you've collaborated with Hanson, this is a part of your job and you can accomplish it. But due diligence should have been done with that. That is a building, that is a purchase and an infrastructure in the city that is being funded by hot funds. Hot funds in which are collected by hotel and motels in this city. If you look at a geographical map of the majority of the hotels and motels in the city, it is heading that direction towards Karn City. Land should have been considered of finding something suitable within proximity to that. But then it was funny because then I was approached by Las Colinas, who had previously shown the city, collaborated with the city to give free land to the taxpayers to build a convention center out there, which then would have supported those hotels that we're collecting those taxes from. It would have been walking, because this is not a community center. This is a convention center. This has to hold events. It has to put heads in beds. This would probably have been a better project and something projected that to them that the hotels themselves would have probably supported more than spending $680,000 for now that's 4 acres of land, and that's it.
I don't even know where that Las Colinas thing came from.
This was back with Las Colinas with the city of Kenedy.
I've never seen that.
Well, they said they've made multiple presentations to city council, and they've also said that, long story short, my biggest thing is due diligence should have been done. Before going out and spending taxpayer dollars, we should have looked at multiple avenues. This was placed on an agenda, it was rushed, and we wasted $680,000. Your recommendation for Sandra Lundquist prior to me being on this council was when you're not spending that money correctly, then you should be terminated. And with that being said, I know it's not a popular opinion, but this is my evaluation of you. This was a big expenditure, same thing that we fired people for much smaller things in this city, in this entity. And if it was up to me right now, I think a dismissal of your position is adequate based off recommendations that you brought to this council before. You've told us based off of this, you highlight, and I've said multiple times, even with this city water issue, with the miscalculations, that's justification for removal of that position. The way I see it, it's the same recommendation that you would give for yourself for any other employee.
I don't think that the convention center went quite like you said it did, but if that's how you feel, that's how you feel.
It's not how it is to assure, to make me feel better, and not necessarily make me feel better, for the public to see transparency in that. When we discussed that, and when I said it back in open session, and I said I knew this was going to happen, I knew we should have gotten an inspection, I knew we should have had engineered evaluations, some of the council members were up here nodding their heads, confirming it.
But you didn't ask me that day.
In closed session, yes. When we were discussing it before the purchase, yes, those are exact things that I said.
Justin, I don't remember that. If you're gonna say you did, you did.
I did, I know I did.
And then in closed session, you're saying.
Why, and that's, the thing about it is, taxpayer dollars should not be spent any differently than your own. How I spend my money is my own private business, but I would expect the same respect from a governing council to spend it the same way that I would spend my money. And with all that being said, nobody buys a house without getting a building inspection. And it doesn't look good to the taxpayers that what do we have to show for $680,000?
But we're at 5 councils to vote to do that. It wasn't just.
Based off your recommendation as a project manager, the city manager of this city.
Does anybody else regret doing that? I mean, is that not what y'all wanted to do? Leslie? Brandon? James? Cindy didn't hear me about the building.
Yep, she wasn't. It's an evaluation, and like I said, your evaluation would have pretty much been the exact same from last year, but that was a big, if you don't want to admit to what was said in closed session, that's fine, but I'm letting you know and reminding you that's what was said, and this could have been prevented.
Does anybody else have anything?
I'm just going to compliment you all as well on the water issue. I appreciate that. I'm going to go more along the lines of just what I put here. Honesty. I mean, I can't trust you. And I hate to say it, but that's the truth. And it's nothing personal. Whatever happened. But when I hear from a very prominent man in this community, and during this election, he tells me that the city manager calls him and tells him not to vote for me because I'm crazy. I mean, I don't want that. It shouldn't happen to anybody.
Yeah, I never called anybody during the elections. A prominent man. I don't know who that would be.
That's what he told me.
I have no idea.
He has no reason to lie. He didn't know me. And like I said, I don't care that it was me, but it shouldn't, you as a city manager, again, are the face of the city, and if that's the kinds of things that you're doing, it can't and it shouldn't be.
I don't even have no comment man in your district.
Well, it doesn't matter, it goes to,
but when you say stuff like that, I need to know. Justin, you're saying that I've said stuff, that stuff. You and I did have a conversation, but it was at 8 o'clock at night, wasn't it, on a Friday night?
Actually, it was last Tuesday. The conversation I'm talking about was the night of that city council meeting in closed session before the council decided to approve for the purchase of the building. That's why I voted no. I was the 5th vote, but I voted it down no. It continued to accrue.
That's fine, Justin, but I don't.
And it's not Barbara, it's not personal. Because if it was personal when I came into this, things would be a lot different. I'm the type of person, business is business, and we discussed that on the phone Tuesday. But the reason I feel the way I do is we can fire people based off of monetary mistakes. And this was a monetary mistake. Because what do we, 4 acres is for $680,000.
It wasn't $680,000.
It was $500,000, the estimate for demolition. Yes, demolition too, because that's a part of the project. Now we're in the $680,000 at ground zero. And that's what I feel like people on this council really need to think about. Because with that being said, we fired somebody for the loss of water profits based off of your recommendation.
I don't think that was true before.
Okay.
Anybody else?
well, yeah, I wasn't done. Yeah, we fired a lot of people for honestly no reason. And I think it's just your personal feelings play a lot. They have a lot to do with things that go on around here. People that I've talked to, employees, past employees, they don't like coming to work because they never know if it's going to be their day. They're scared to say anything because it's going to get back to, back to you and things are gonna personally, it's gonna happen. You're gonna get fired. I did watch a city council meeting in which I know that you told the city council that you didn't know these certain employees had been hired. And that's not true. Because they come into City Hall every day. So you can't say that you don't know that they're hired.
Now, wait a second, there's circumstances that surround that. First of all, personnel files are open to the public. Anybody that wants to go get an open records request and look through any personnel file for anybody that was terminated is more than
I mean, you can say that, but
I mean, when Amanda was gone, we did not have any HR person, we did not have anything. We had people turning and stuff to Karen who had no idea who people were. They weren't being filed, and I never saw them. None of them are signed by me. And you can go look at that. I don't go out looking for people or looking for stuff or to see who's working in the city. And when Amanda was gone, it was very, very hard.
well, you don't have to because they came in, I worked here and I saw them. So if I knew they were working here, you knew they were working here. Lorenzo Gonzalez, I can't remember the other ones, but that wasn't truthful. And I spoke with David Tiller, and he told me the same thing you knew. Amanda
David Tiller never told me he's hired those people back.
But Amanda knew, she is human resources. And Amanda told
Amanda went here.
I was on maternity leave.
The forms were turned into Karen,
somebody
and we never saw them. They were just payroll.
The form that Barbara has to sign off on the employee status form, they weren't done.
but they come into City Hall, and I know you've seen them. You can't tell me, if I did, I know.
When I saw Lorenzo, I did ask David, how did he get back here? And he was, well, I hired him back, because Amanda's not here and I need help.
Well, I'm just gonna reiterate that I just, the level of disrespect even that I received from you. I mean, again, just because it's me, I don't care, but it shouldn't happen to anybody, not a customer, not an employee, anybody. We should all be treated with the level of respect that I'm sure you would like, and I would like the same thing. When I came in to speak with you one day, I get a text message that if I want to see anything, I have to put it in writing. And I am not to go behind the counter. It was the mayor's behind the counter all day, every day. There's no difference.
Will you tell her how to get behind the counter?
I asked, well, they call me, come sign something.
Well, I mean, that's fine, but if I'm there, if I have a reason, I just, nobody else got the text message, it was just me. There is no, you don't have a policy in place where a council person cannot come in and view documents with,
I called Dan about that as well, because we asked for specific phone bills. And we don't, I don't want phone bills on anything for, we have full bills, okay?
I know, but you didn't know that at the time, that's not.
No, I did, I wouldn't know we didn't have full bills, I told you, I said, we can get you an itemization.
And that's fine,
But
I wasn't
fill out
gonna
the
do that.
paperwork.
I have to listen to my constituents, I have to listen to people that talk to me on a daily basis, and it's just gotten so nasty, we've lost all common decency, and it starts at the top. And that, the level of nastiness is just, I truly believe we just need to start over. And that's just my personal opinion.
Anyone else?
I really do hope and iterate that I am very serious about what I'm saying. And this is business. It really is. And if no action is taken off of this, we're still going to have to work together. And with that being said, I really hope you consider the points I had made, because that was a huge mistake. And regardless if you want to admit that you know it or not, I know our discussion, and I know what was said, and I know the questions that I asked. It means stuff like that does not need to happen.
Justin, I'm not an expert in buildings. There's
That's
a lot of
fine,
stuff I could
but
answer.
you purchased houses before, which means you most likely got an inspection on your home, and you're dealing with taxpayer dollars. I mean, that's point blank period. You should be more reserved and conservative, spending other people's hard work dollars and making sure that you really understand the scope of what you're trying to accomplish. You are the full-time employee of this city. You are top management of this city.
I think we all knew that building had asbestos, it's an old style building.
But that's the thing. That's the thing. When I brought up black mold, you said, "Oh no, there's no black mold." Like, "Oh, I've seen the roof. The roof is fine. Even has air conditioners on it." Barbara,
The structure did not look bad,
Is
but
there
it was
any
cheaper, but we could either replace it or tore it down.
So
Do we
you
have
get
anything
engineering
else other
about.
than this building that we're gonna keep talking about, because it wasn't purchased by her?
It was
purchased by-
recommended by the city manager. Yes, sir, it was.
That's probably true, okay?
Yes.
But she didn't go out and buy the building. She didn't say, "Don't buy the building."
But what I am trying to say is we need trustworthy recommendations given to this council so we can trust her with that.
I agree
Let
with
me ask you a
that.
question on that. What was the rush to buy that?
We needed a place close to 181 on Main Street, a lot of property.
The whole point of that building is gonna blend with Escondido Creek Parkway, just what everybody else really wanted. There's nothing in town for anybody to rent other than the auditorium.
So a convention center, like I said, even in that initial meeting, I'm not against it, but let's do it strategically. I specifically talked to you how the city does not do strategic planning. That it would be, in my personal opinion, very beneficial to do 5-year plans with the council as a whole, not just parts of the council.
And I agree with you, Justin, it's hard, like I said, when we have TCEQ violations, those have to come first. We gotta keep above the sewer and water thing, we can't keep getting fined for it.
There's no data, Justin. They didn't even have the tools here for 30 years to collect data from anything to build upon.
But strategic planning doesn't necessarily only have to be TCEQ violations.
No, they didn't tell you what your infrastructure looks like underground. Did you?
Exactly, and the GIS mapping has been a blessing that the city has gone that direction, so now we have that information. Not disagreeing with that, but stuff like convention centers, stuff like parkway projects, stuff like.
I think you're personally upset, and that's the bottom line.
I don't know, honestly, I don't care what you think. This is my personal evaluation of an appointed official that reports to me.
But it's becoming abusive.
It's not abusive. At some point, I don't see how we can justify firing Sandra, the council firing Sandra off of a monetary mistake. It keeps getting reiterated to us. It was a monetary mistake. It was a large monetary mistake. That's what keeps getting told to this council. So
you saw it from the auditor, Justin.
Okay, that's my point. This council is okay with that kind of decision with that city secretary, but when it comes to this city manager who have made a large monetary mistake, it's
That's the whole thing.
so. But $680,000, $500,000 for a building in 4 acres, and spending $180,000 then in the demolition. Although the projected project was to be for a remodel, not new construction, but that's not a mistake. I think it's up to everybody.
Never mind even that, just perception out in this city is you bought the building in a hurry to pay a certain individual who was on his last legs.
That's not true at all.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying it's true.
Well, what I'm saying is not hearsay. I only deal with facts, and I know this is a fact.
Tell me what you're saying, because that's exactly what y'all go on. But what I'm saying is, that's what's around, that's what the perception, that's what's out there in the public, and that's not what we shouldn't have.
Anybody else?
So do we have a projected budget for this convention center, since we're talking about this?
The special projects committee.
That's not this, unfortunately, that's not this agenda item.
The savings is falling into this.
You can if you want to.
Yeah, there's gonna be a budget, but the special projects committee just voted on that, and then we brought it to council, and it's one of the projects on our bill.
Anybody else have anything pertaining to the evaluation of the city manager? No?
Just consider we have to be honest, we have to be transparent, we have to be respectful. Please just remember that, that's how you should run a business, that's all I'm saying. I have no personal feelings, bad feelings, I'm not a person that hangs on to anything. But I hear from people every day, all day.
So what do we want to do?
Well, if it was up to me, I would say the dismissal of our current city manager, Barbara Shaw. that would be my motion.
And I would say,
With cause?
As stated, and actually, let me just ask a legal question. Are we, with Barbara's, does Barbara have a current term contract?
She doesn't have a contract.
Mm-hmm.
What the local government code says is that if you're going to dismiss a public official for cause, they're entitled to due notice and an opportunity to be heard. So if any of this was provided to her ahead of time, that would be considered due notice. And she would have an opportunity to respond to whatever those things are. If that wasn't done, then your other option is for a lack of confidence, and no confidence vote requires 4.
So it's supermajority.
That's correct. And it has to be, either has to be done by resolution. I was not asked by anyone to prepare a resolution.
Okay, so in this, let me ask you this. Then, can we put an employee on probation?
I believe it's required just dismissal.
But I have a question I'd just like to ask. I mean, Brandon and Leslie and Brenda gave me great evaluations.
It's personal with these two.
You can believe what you want, Mayor.
it is not, what you do is personal. Exactly.
But
But I don't lie. I have nothing to lie about. Ask, tell me, what am I lying about?
does anybody else have anything?
I have nothing
about this
to lie
evaluation?
about. Anybody out there can ask me anything and you will get the truth. I have nothing to hide.
Can the taxpayers have anything to say with anything, if I may ask, attorney? No, I'm just asking.
Yeah, I wish I could let you.
Okay, no, that's fine. So the next meeting, our public comments can come out?
Yes, sir.
Okay, like me. Thank you, sir.
This is something that I'm concerned with, guys. We get a couple more of these former disgruntled employees up here elected, and then everything that the city's worked for the past 2
Nobody
years.
is disgruntled. I have no problem.
For the past 2 years.
One door closes,
is out the
another one
window.
opens. It's very simple.
I
do not hang on to anger. I'm not mad at anybody. It happened. It happened.
The evaluations have been done.
Right. But this can come up next month, the following month. And at the end of the deal, the taxpayers pay for it. We don't. I mean, nobody wants to come work here. Nobody. I've seen this before, and this is how it's going to go. We're going to go after the city manager, then we're going to go after the attorneys, then we're going to go after the engineers. And then who wants to come here? Who wants to come and work like this in Kenedy, Texas?
I'm sure there were a lot of people who wanted to work here. You just didn't let them. It's a personal, it's your personal playground. I'm sorry. That's what it is. That's what it's become.
You can't manage your checkbook, and you're going to tell me how to do something.
Whoa, that's uncalled for.
Yes,
But I didn't try to say the
The problem is you.
Right.
all I have to say, it's not personal. The convention, for me, and I told you this, we talked about it for 2 hours. I told you.
Well, no, let me go back to personal. No.
We have a motion. Hey, don't tell me second. You need a motion and a second.
I
waited on the attorney to get back with us on.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
We already made the motion.
But that's why I would like to make a motion to retract my motion.
Retract your motion.
What I'm trying to say is I was waiting for legal advice.
I'll second that retraction.
Thank you. Was there any?
So, no, it doesn't speak to it in there. I don't have your personal policies in front of me as to what, your authority is with regards to the city manager place her on probation, or any employee for that matter. I don't have that memorized. If you want to take a recess or something, we can go pull that and look at it. That's what you
No, I would say then, no action for tonight. We can follow up, and if the council wants to do this in the future, that's fine. But if we don't know what the law says, then.
I would like to do it tonight. I don't want to keep coming to do this. I mean, either whatever y'all are going to do, you're going to do.
Like I said, it's.
I'd like to do it tonight. Leslie, Brenda, Brandon.
Well, I make a motion that we continue to keep our city manager and move forward.
I second that.
Wait, number 14.
We never went into closed session, so I'm not going to Okay, discussion? Call the roll.
Counselor Briones?
Nay.
Counselor Wynn?
Oh, wait, what do we do? What are we doing? His or yours?
No, Brandon. Stay the game.
Yeah, sorry.
Make a motion that we keep city manager in place and move forward.
No, Brandon.
Yes, you want to be here, or no, you don't want to be here.
No, he said yes. No, Brandon.
He just gave me a great evaluation, why can't he give his opinion?
Well, I would like to go to that 5-minute, that recess to get all the information correct.
So then, should we motion to recess so the attorney can review the provisions, or the personnel policy to see what it states on placing someone on probation?
We have a motion on the floor. You cannot change a motion that's on the floor. Okay?
Okay.
We have a motion and a second.
Counselor Briones?
Can you come back to me?
Counselor Wynn?
Stay. Yes.
Counselor Sines?
No.
Counselor Conner?
Yes, same.
Counselor Meyer?
No.
Counselor Briones?
You can go back and give him the opportunity to look at it.
So that wasn't, Councilman, that wasn't the motion that was made. I can tell you this, that regardless of the outcome of your vote, the city manager is not terminated because you haven't done that properly. So that would require actual findings and actual due notice to the city manager and an opportunity to be heard and a resolution. And none of that is before this council.
So then what's the purpose of voting?
The purpose of the motion was, the motion was to retain the city manager. You can fire her again as soon as you call a special call meeting and do it if you want to. I mean, she serves at your pleasure. But if you're going to terminate her, you have to do it appropriately.
Let's keep, stay.
Motion passed. Item number 15, consideration and possible action to request the qualification for contract city attorney to be appointed by the Kenedy City Council. Any movement?
I'd like to make a motion to consider number 15.
I'll second that.
Discussion, yes, when you start with you made a motion.
Yes, sir. So since Megan has now moved on to Austin, correct? I figured it would just be fair for taxpayers and just to go out for RFQs, just to see if there's any other interested law firms looking at working with the city, since we're dealing with new attorneys now down here.
Do you have anything?
I want to ask a question. You said we're dealing with new attorneys. We're still dealing with the
Same law firm.
Yes. We're still dealing with the same people that look at, anytime we have a situation, the attorneys go back and talk among each other. So the law firm that we're dealing with, they know our situation. This is the same law firm that has kept us out of TCQ violations, has gotten our permits for our new water, has worked on all these different things to keep us out of litigation problems. Why would we change these attorneys?
Well, my question is, well, we do have two separate attorneys. So we have our water attorney, which is, I always forget his name, Ed McCarthy. So he's done a lot of the water projects. But with that being said, are we spending over $50,000 in attorney fees?
Not with these guys anymore. Their bill's gone way down.
Okay.
Now, Ed's is very high. That CCN thing is very expensive.
Right.
And one thing Ed does that, he doesn't bill us monthly. I think we only got one bill from him, and now we're gonna get another bill from him. He doesn't bill timely. I mean, I can't say it's not timely, it's just money.
Right.
But just to clarify, and it matters not to me one way or the other, but y'all didn't appoint a person, you appointed a firm.
Right.
We came in here when your prior city attorney passed away. We only came in on an interim basis. We were requested to come in here on an interim basis, and the idea then was that the city would have an RFQ process. After we were in place, I was assigned the account, and so I was coming to all the meetings. And after a few months, the decision was made by the council to appoint a permanent city attorney to not do the RFQ because after we were established it. Megan took over this account about a year ago, maybe, but up until that time, I serviced this account. Adolfo came in when Megan transferred to our Austin office. We have 21 attorneys.
Right.
You know, you can almost have your pick. It just depends. A lot of it has to do with meeting nights, conflicts, but you didn't hire an attorney, you hired a firm. Everything's done on a collaborative approach, not done individually. So y'all want to RFQs, that's fine. We may or may not submit.
I'm opposed. We got an entire firm that we can use. I know that if my kid was in trouble, I wouldn't go bargain shopping for an attorney. And I don't think we should do that with the,
I'm just saying competitive pricing. I mean, if the city's never done an RFQ.
yes, so could I please finish? I wouldn't go budget shopping, especially with everything that's been accomplished in the last 2 years and what we're looking at here in the future. I know some of us think we know a lot up here with zero experience in our lives, but we're fixing to be faced with something that's going to be detrimental, and if you don't have the right people, it's going to get really, really sticky, and you won't have to worry about trying to make your city manager. You'll have to worry about a lot of other things up there. So I don't think now's a good time to start budget shopping for attorneys.
Okay, and if that's what the council wants to do, I'm fine with that. It was just some of the things that I was thinking about. This was my agenda item, and it's, once again.
What are you saying I missed that?
Huh?
You said something. What did you say?
Missed that.
Yeah, we were talking, you bent down and we said something I missed that. You said something about the agenda.
Oh, that was my agenda item. I thought you just said I said I
And
missed
what do we
it.
pay this law firm?
It's hourly.
It's an hourly rate.
What is it per hour?
What should I say? It depends on the attorney. Usually it's $195 per hour.
The bills are here for y'all to review.
So, for anybody to review, I mean, we would have to redact anything that's attorney-client privilege. But we bill you every month, and it's itemized billing in the 10th of an hour.
You can come look at them.
Y'all can look at it. Any of y'all can come
I don't
to
think we
San Antonio if you want
should
to.
change now that we're in the process of doing all the things that we're doing and all the things, like you said, all the fines and everything that's happening these days, know what's going on. I hate to change and then say, okay, this is all our problems, and they have to learn all the, we've already got somebody situated and said and knows everything that's happening. There's no point in changing.
But there's a timeout here too, because their bills were high for a while because you had the water issue going on with the rates, plus the city attorney fees. So you had two bills coming from them. One was for litigation, one was the city attorney fees. You also had the substandard structure building coming from them. If you remember, we also had litigation.
Well, right. Are we anticipating?
We don't know yet. I don't know on that item at all.
Because then if it exceeds
What do you
50, if we're exceeding 50,000,
Not for professional services agreement.
Professional services agreement.
That's like Kansas.
I mean,
It's a professional services agreement, like a master services agreement, a professional services agreement, the attorneys, that's different. It's not like a contractor. You're saying like the $50,000 cap? No.
That's not how that works. The other thing to keep bearing in mind too is that, so if you want to do litigation that isn't covered by TML, then you're paying for that. So if you hire us or anyone else to come in and do a one-off on litigation, like your substandard building or anything else, or to defend when you get sued that TML's not covering, then yes, you do have to pay for that. Otherwise, your liability claims they're assigned out through TML.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's what your insurance is for. But your insurance, if you retain us direct hire to handle litigation, it is going to cost you more than if it goes through TML because you're actually having to pay the bill as opposed to your insurance carrier paying the bills. And that's going to depend on whether or not it's a liability claim that's covered by your policy. We don't represent you if it's a liability claim because we're acting as your general counsel. We can't do that. TML won't assign us cases to defend general liability claims. So does that. But the reason why we do you separately for like municipal court versus city attorney, you get different bills, different line items, because it's different work.
Right.
And it's billed at a different rate. Your municipal court billing is billed at a rate lower than your general counsel work, which is billed at a lower rate than litigation. Litigation is the highest rate.
Right.
Because it's a specialized practice. So.
Any other discussion?
Sir?
Call roll, please.
Counselor Bionis?
Nay.
Counselor Wynn?
No.
Counselor Sines?
No.
Counselor Tono? No. Counselor Meyer?
No.
Motion passes. Discussion and direction regarding the creation of a summary report reflecting changes in city personnel such as new hires, resignation, and terminations to be presented to the city council at each regular scheduled meeting. Any movement?
I'll make a motion to consider May 16th.
Second? Go ahead, Justin.
This is something I get a lot of questions from people asking, who's been newly hired, I heard this, or I've heard from different people in regard to just generally wanting to know who's working at the city of Kenedy. Yes, I have an 8 to 5 job. A lot of us have 8 to 5 jobs. So this would just be a very basic. Barbara and I already talked about it. There's 4 different points that we can put on there, which are job title, salary, date of hire, and the rate of pay. Yes. And the only other thing that I would ask the attorney is, can we also, if it was just a 1-page, just general basic summary sheet of who was getting hired with the city or who was getting promoted, not that we need an example of Justin Meyer was terminated for insubordination and blah, 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 blah. Can we just have an HR checkoff box saying that, yes, the background check has been performed, whatever, or all HR duties have been performed, and then HR signs off on it.
Micromanager.
No, it's not micromanaging. I just would like to know who's getting hired. And this is another key point why this can be beneficial is keeping up with salary paid. For example, a problem that different entities face, or what have you.
It's called control.
No, it's not control.
That describes the mayor.
Yeah, I saw your email. Thank you.
Well, I have a question while we on that topic. The whole reason that we, as a body, gave control of running the city to the city manager and the city secretary was so we don't have to have those type of things. Because if somebody is terminated for cause, we don't need to know that.
You don't.
They don't work for, none of the city employees work for city council. That was the first thing they told us in our training. These people do not work for us. We are the body that runs the city, that directs the city manager in the actions that she or he needs to do. They do not work for us. So we don't go to job sites and tell them what to do.
That's what this is. This is a better understanding of who is working within the city. And what I'm trying to say on top of that is we're also
just come out to it then to say, hey, what did you hire this week?
Oh, but that's what I'm saying. Can there be some type of reporting system? So even if it's an Excel spreadsheet and say these are our new hires this month, these are who were fired this month, these are who resigned.
So, Councilman, what about if it were added to
an HR report
an HR report on the consent?
Right, and that's what we had talked about.
And I or our labor lawyer, Chris Rodriguez, will work with Barbara, take a stab at what that would look like. Let her get one in the packet next month and see if it meets with the council's approval. If you want more information than what's in there, we'll have an explanation as to either why that can't be in there or it'll be. That's the pleasure of the council.
And the only, Barbara already agreed that she would do this, but I wanted to see if anybody else had any input on anything else being on there. And we get reports on how many gallons of chemicals is being put into the city water supply each day or at a certain hour. I don't know about you guys, that's not really imperative to me, that's more of manager information. I would like to know of the individuals who are just working in the city. It's not micromanaging, I just would like to know who's currently working in the city as a staff overturning. For example, if we're not paying our police officers enough and the overturn is very high, then they would tell us, look, maybe we need to evaluate what their pay rate is, because they might be leaving for reasons like, oh, well, Beeville PD is paying $53,000 and we're paying $43,000 or card. I mean, it's not, there's no sense of micromanaging in this. I just personally cannot be here during the normal operation hours because that is when I have a 8 to 5 job. And Barbara did say that she didn't have a problem doing that after she talked with the law firm. But the reason it was placed on here is to see if anybody else had any other opinion of any other information that we put on here with an attorney, so we could discuss it together and say, hey, yay, you can do that, nay, you can't do it.
That's the same thing that any state agency or anybody else can do. It's like Texas Tribune. Like you can go to texastribune.org and you can pull up every state employee and it gives you the exact same information either out. That would be the name, pay rate, date of hire.
Separation.
Now, the employee sign sheet is a drug and alcohol and a criminal check. So I don't know, Clarissa wrote that email, I don't know if I.
Yeah, that would not be information that we typically get a summary report. It would be an accounting for privacy reasons. It's really unlike the other reports that you receive. So that's the concerns. That's the only concerns we would have, is just protecting the privacy of employees and former employees.
Right.
But I don't think you're asking for anything that...
I don't need any specific document.
But are you saying just like a regular report?
Let's take a step. We'll put the information we're comfortable being in there, and then if there's other specific information that any council member thinks should be in there, we'll be able to tell you why it was not placed.
Someone's going to handle that. So that's more of a staff direction.
Any other discussion? Just information. Call the roll.
Counselor Briones?
Yes.
Counselor Wynn?
Yes.
Counselor Sines?
Yes.
Counselor Cronin?
Yes.
Counselor Meyer?
Yes.
All in favor?
Motion passes. Item number 17.
And I guess item number 17, per your discussion, we don't even need to discuss anymore, correct?
You can get that from him if you want. I mean, I just want to make sure you get what you're looking for.
Well, from my understanding, from what you said earlier, a citizen does not necessarily mean a citizen of Kenedy. So
Yeah, let's discuss it.
Okay.
Discussion and direction regarding the interpretation of whether or not citizen comments is adopted and codified allows any member of the public owning a business interest in the city of Kenedy or has a concern with the city of Kenedy the opportunity to speak in a 3-minute time allocation. Movement.
I'll make a motion to discuss item 17.
Second?
I'll second that.
My understanding is it was U.S. and Canada. The reason it was, anybody were required by law to let anybody walk in and say something under citizen comments. Where I got that was TML originally, and they used those specific words, citizen comment with no S. They used public comments with public hearings, and that's how I came up with that originally. So I didn't, when I threw it out there, I never thought, okay, it's just the citizens of Kenedy. I don't know what anybody else thought. So, I mean, but I didn't, that wasn't what I was thinking.
That's what the agenda says.
So citizen comments.
It also says the city council welcomes the citizens of Kenedy to speak during the citizens' comments.
We do, but it doesn't say we don't want the vote on any other citizen.
I thought we couldn't make comments unless it's put on the list.
You're right.
Okay.
So for clarification, at this point moving forward, if we're welcoming in and out of city limits of Kenedy. As long in the United
States and Canada, because we're obligated to by law.
Okay. So then should we
As your rules are written, Councilman, it doesn't say citizens of Kenedy, it's citizens. So,
I think she's talking, right.
well, on the agenda, yes, it says we welcome the citizens of Kenedy.
So maybe we should just fix that in upcoming agendas.
Well, we do welcome the citizens of Kenedy. We're not saying we don't welcome any other citizen, but we do welcome the citizens of Kenedy.
So then when should we add into that also citizens of the United States and citizens of Canada? I think it's misleading, because that was the same impression.
They don't really want to talk, Justin, they rather bend your ear, my ear, and the next person's ear. All you gotta do is sign up, say their name, and we let them talk. We never told them, no, you can't talk. I haven't anyway.
Justin, the only thing is if you change that, it's by ordinance.
Okay.
So we need to amend it by ordinance. So if you're gonna change any one word in there, it needs to be by ordinance. But if there's something that says it's all citizens. You know what I'm saying?
It's a citizen.
Citizen means all citizens.
Are you following me, Justin, what I'm saying?
Anybody in the United States in Canada is a
It's
citizen.
right there. You have it.
Not in Canada. Not Canada.
Yes, Canada is included. We've said that 3 times.
Yeah, I heard you.
Okay, let's go on, you guys. Leave that up to me, please.
Thank you. Will do.
Do we have any other discussion on that?
I mean, if you wanted me to add Canada,
No, I just want to make, it's not about, it doesn't have to stipulate, no, it doesn't have to, that's fine. I just want to make sure the public knows that if you live in the city limits or not, you can speak in our meetings. Because I think it was a misconception to me, and it wasn't what I thought I was approving, and it wasn't, after the comment, what I thought you meant by it. That's why this got placed on the agenda. But if it
you
is,
took that wrong, but I'm not gonna argue with it. I'm saying now it's gonna just go. That's what I'm saying. That's why I told y'all that one night.
but why make it?
I'm just telling you.
Well, we can talk about that.
That's fine.
Okay. So then, like I said, we don't, there's no action as long as a citizen of the United States and Canada can do it. I'm just clarification, transparency. All I'm doing.
Any other discussion?
You said do those for Canada. Everybody discuss.
That's what I was trying Welcome the citizens.
I think it was.
That'll work.
Come one, come all.
Sometimes specifically, they won't be able to do that through the legislation.
I can take out Kenedy, Justin. Well, Amanda can, it's on your, it's on Main Street.
Yeah, is that
No.
Okay, make a motion to do that, please.
I'd like to make a motion in regard to amending the citizen comment portion on the agenda to delete out, to read, the city council welcomes the citizens to speak during citizens' comments.
Second. I'll second. Call roll, please.
Counselor Brianna?
Yes.
Counselor Wood?
Yes.
Counselor Sines?
Yes.
Counselor Condon? Yes. Counselor Meyer?
Yes.
Motion passes. Item number 18, discussion and direction regarding adoption of rules and procedures to require all agenda items include the name or names of the individual or individuals that place the agenda item on the agenda.
This used to be a common procedure.
Yeah, it used to be on there.
Yeah, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to discuss number 18.
I'll second.
Okay, Justin, I'm just trying to figure out what is the importance of it. I mean, I'm ignorant to it, other than let everybody know that you came up with this idea. What is the purpose of that?
So people know that it's all about, my thing is all about public transparency, to know that this person is coming up because they have found an issue or wants to create a solution or has found a new project, that they want the city to know that this is what they stand behind, this is what they are trying to accomplish. And it's something the city has done before.
Right. I didn't know, other than what I said, you just repeated that to me.
Some y'all wanted on there, some y'all didn't. That's why.
Yeah, we were trying to, when I thought about it, I didn't really think it mattered if I put it on there or you put it on there. it was still gonna go out in front of the public.
Right.
It was gonna be discussed in public, and then we were gonna vote on it versus, well, okay, this is Sutton's idea, let's go vote for it, which we know that's opposite, but, that's the only thing I see good in it. We know that she put this on there, or you put it on there, or whatever, and it's like, I didn't think that was really, it was relevant to what we're doing up here.
I think it shows a sense of public transparency.
It could, I
It
guess.
could, but then it can also single you out as an individual. And, oh, he put, just think about if you put something on there bad. And it's like, oh my God, Justin put it on there because he's mad about whatever. So it could be negative and it could be positive if you think about it that way.
But it's transparency.
Right, but we're up here as a team, because that's what we should do. And we discuss it as a team. So regardless if you put it on the agenda or I put it or whoever put it on there, we're still gonna discuss it as a team and we're all gonna decide as a group what we wanna do together, whether we agree with all of it or not. But it can go either way. Like I said, you can bring negative on yourself and you can bring positive on yourself. And it doesn't matter to me. I don't care. But I just think we should just keep it the way it is, and we're a team, and we work as a team, and that's what it should be. Plain and simple. It shouldn't be individualized. This was your deal.
No,
This was your deal.
It's an author.
We already
It's
have too many problems
an,
with people being individual in this city, fighting so hard about always individual. You think this and you think that, and that just gives you more things for people to say to me.
No, not really.
You know what I mean?
The part about it is that when you have an author to an agenda item, that means you have then your presenter, and it also lets you know if there's someone coming in from the outside to come do a presentation, you then know beforehand who that author is. They're going to be the initial discusser, and then the council as a whole creates that quorum of discussion to feed off
But
of
we
it.
all know who, you know which ones you put on, so when he asked for the motion, you made the motion because it was your item, was something that you were gonna discuss, so you made the motion to open it, so then you will get to take control of it.
Okay, but
Because then you can say, oh, this is the presenter I want to speak or whatever, but it doesn't have to be individualized publicly, you say, oh, this is my thing.
I know
It's up to you.
No. But okay, but usually what happens now is we kind of look around after every agenda item and we're looking to see, okay, well, who put this on there? We're waiting for someone to get in and give an example. And so the agenda item would read, then after it's read, then it's known that Brenda Cano put something on the agenda. She would then give her initial comment, and then it goes up into a form of discussion to discuss it.
I don't want to give her initial comment. It's going to get a motion in a second.
Right, you get a motion in a second, and once it's gone into the agenda item, and then that's why you have authors for agenda items.
Yeah, I think no author prevents me from calling you and saying, hey, I saw you put this on the agenda, what's that about?
Okay, and that's what I put, and that's why I put it on the agenda, so we can discuss it.
Any other discussion?
No, sir.
So we're not doing it? I'm sorry.
Yeah, let's, what do we want to do? Somebody make a motion on what we want to do on it.
I make a motion to leave the agenda the way it is, and not add to all of it.
I second. Any other discussion?
Yes, just, if there's any way someone doesn't feel comfortable about it, and someone else brings it up, we're still gonna discuss it, correct? I mean, it's not gonna be like, yes, say Kenedy, or I put it up there, and I was like, oh, let's see if someone else puts it up, calls it up, it's still gonna be discussed one way or another, unless we're gonna move, correct?
Correct.
It's what you're doing now.
Yeah.
I guess
That's what I'm saying, it's not gonna change whether or not it's on or not.
Anything else?
Go ahead.
So we make the motion in the second.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What did you?
We're still in discussion. So,
Well, because I told Justin the reason I put that on there like you did is the next one's the conduct thing, and it has that in there as well. So it's just
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
We're not like,
Does that make sense?
Yep. Any other discussion?
Counselor Briones?
Nay.
Counselor Wood?
no.
Counselor Sines?
Wait a minute, what are we voting? Back up, because I made a motion that we leave it the way it
Leaving it the way it is.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that's what the motion is, to leave it the way it is.
I'm sorry, then it should be yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
Counselor Briones?
Wake up, people. Yes.
Counselor Wood?
Yes.
Counselor Sines?
No.
Counselor Hona?
Yes.
Counselor Meyer?
yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Item number 19, consideration of possible action in regard to ordinance 19-4, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Kenedy, amending Chapter 2, Article 2 of the City of Kenedy Code of Ordinances to provide for rules of decorum for the City Council. Any movement?
Make a motion to discuss item number 19.
I'll second. Go ahead, Brandon. You open.
Yes, this is regarding to, what again?
19.
What we just discussed, correct?
No, 19.
It's the next thing.
Number 19.
It talks about how we handle, it actually talks about how we handle everything. How it's done, what needs to be done, how it should be done. Robert's Rules of Order is what we are using, and that will continue, but there is some other stuff that...
What can possibly be changed in this? I guess the question I'm asking is there...
Well, I dropped the ball with Chivella, right?
Yes.
I didn't put his item on the agenda for tonight. In there, it has something to do, it has a procedure for how we're gonna put things on the agenda. So before I leave tonight, if this goes into effect, I'll make sure that I deliver that to the the city secretary, what I want on that agenda. That way I don't drop the ball on Chai again or any other citizen.
And also, gives you rules of order of how you're called, how you situation is called upon. The mayor will
act right. The mayor will act right with these rules. It says that, I'm not joking.
Yeah. It will require him to be very calm, but the process will not change by much, other than the fact that you'll have 5 minutes to say whatever you're going to say.
Instead of 3?
And instead of
3.
well, no, we just talk, but we can talk forever.
Yeah.
That's the problem. We can talk forever. So
Will you talk about with the 5 minute thing?
it's in there.
So, just if I could speak to this just a little bit. So, what this represents is an amendment to the city code that I have put together and had adopted in multiple cities. Okay, this one has different elements from different ordinances that I put together to address my understanding of some concerns expressed by the council over time as just trying to bring more order to your meetings and the way you conduct your business. This is an extensive amendment to your city code, and I don't recommend adopting this if you haven't read the entire thing. It also has a code of ethics and conduct for city officials and employees, in addition to the council. It has the process by which you'll conduct your public hearings. It has rules for, since you've already adopted some rules for citizen comments, that's not addressed fully in here. Instead, this will fit in conjunction with what should already be codified that you passed previously regarding citizen comments. But it does talk about oral presentation to members of the public and how they can conduct their business. What Barbara was referring to was one of the standard provisions that's in this is how you place things on the agenda, what it takes for a member of the council to get something placed on the agenda, and it does right now, as it's currently written, would include the name of the sponsor. That's fairly common, but I understand, if you don't want it in there, we'll take that out. It doesn't have to be in, it's not required. A lot of cities have the name of the sponsor because if they're from single member districts, it's their way of showing their constituents, that they're doing work or whatever, putting things on the agenda. So, but that can come out. But there are probably other things in here that may or may not fit with what you want to do as a council. And so it's not like it has to be approved tonight or anything such as that if this is the first time you're seeing it. It's a lot of information.
I think I sent somebody. Thursday or Friday?
Friday. Yeah, I read it. He's right. It's pretty intense.
It's thorough.
It's thorough. It covers. It allows you not to have anything that that you're gray about. You just read it, and that's what you can do, and that's what it is.
he's right. If you hadn't read it, you probably don't want to vote on it.
Say no and move on.
So everybody didn't get a chance to read it, I tell you.
I read it. I read it.
But, he's right. If everybody hadn't read it, we need, I guess, my motion would be that we table it.
So y'all want to just back there?
I would encourage all of you to read it and get with Barbara and let her know what, if there's something you wanted to not have in it. Because it covers everything and it takes the gray out.
Anybody have a motion?
I'll make a motion to table this for the next council meeting.
Second. Hold on.
Counselor Graham?
Yes.
Counselor Witt?
Yes.
Counselor Sines?
Yes.
Counselor Miller?
Yes.
Counselor Meyer?
Yes.
Table TK 20. Consideration and possible action reviewing the 2019 Kenedy Mayo Music Festival's final budget, expenditures, scholarships, and any matter pertaining to the event. Any movement?
Make a motion to discuss item number 20.
And I'll second.
Go ahead, Brandon. You open.
This is, I see we got the list right here on the, how we do the scholarships and there's describing here on the scholarships. That's my question. But I see the budget expenditures, the scholarships. How are y'all going to do about, what scholarships y'all talking about? Be more thorough about that?
Yeah, I never heard anything about scholarships. I'm wondering where that came up, or when that came up.
When it came up where?
Anywhere.
I asked for this to be on here because I did see on the social media page for the Kenedy Music Festival was scholarships, and then people kept asking me, as well as the expenditures and the budget for it. So in order for us to discuss it, we have to put it on the, as a group, we have to put it on the agenda. So that's why I placed that on there. The scholarships question.
Yeah, maybe I need more information. Where did the scholarship money come from? Is that the question?
How are we distributing the scholarships? What's the basis on it? What's the?
Well, we're gonna have to make those rules. We got $3,000, or we're supposed to receive $3,000. I'm thinking 6 $500 scholarships, so we can kind of touch more students from the city, from the Kenedy High School. That came from beer sales and what was it, Hacienda?
I can't remember his name.
I can't either. That came from a not-for-profit organization. That's what they do. They sell alcohol and they provide scholarships for kids here in our area. And then $1,000 of that came from LNF distribution out of Beeville.
But we haven't received it yet.
Yeah, we have not received it.
So can we accept something we haven't received?
We haven't received it yet, that's what I'm saying, that's why we haven't done anything with it. They told us that that's what they're gonna give us. I mean,
Yes.
verbally, I think they sent Amanda a text, but does he send you a text? I sincerely can't remember. But the gentleman told us that day when he came down, it was gonna be $2,000, and then LNF was going to add another $1,000. But they have not submitted that money to the city as of yet.
So with that money, you're saying you guys are going to create these scholarships for the high school students? And is it going to benefit this year's high school students, depending on when you get it?
It needs to be benefit this year, because they're the 2019 graduates. I'd like to get it in. I mean, I don't want to wait till next year. I don't know if y'all are doing this again next year or not, I don't know. But if you're going to do it again next year, why not let this class benefit from this year?
What would the criteria be that y'all said, how y'all select the students? What?
That's what he said. It hadn't been done.
We haven't
Figure all that out still.
Because the money has not.
Money's not here yet.
We're hoping to have money.
That's what the mayor was saying. We hadn't got it yet, and we got to figure it out. We have to decide how to start.
Will we be able to see all this information? Will we get this? How y'all selected it?
Yes.
Who's got it? Yeah.
Yes.
Who's gonna select it?
Do we get to vote on it? I mean, what's it goes to us?
I don't know, it's the first time we've ever done a scholarship.
Well, we're kind of piecemealing it. I mean, we're gonna involve.
I mean, I guess we'd ask the school for their input.
And the money is actually coming from, it's not being given to the city of Kenedy, so it's not like we're giving away city funds. The money is coming from, I believe is it Hacienda?
Yeah, or something like that.
Even with LNF is sitting through Hacienda, so, and that may be the delay.
That may be the delay.
You know,
I don't know.
this is going from A to B to C.
But normally what we would do with scholarships, you would either have the student write an essay, or you would have them something that would come to you and you would read the essays and pick the 6 best essays, and those 6 you'd award scholarships to, and you decide what the essay needs to be on. Something that, you know, write an essay on how they can make Kenedy better. Write an essay on how what they would do if they were going to do a Mayo Fest, and
Amanda, any ideas you guys have?
Yeah.
The nonprofit organization actually has an application, he said that we could use, but we just haven't got that far yet because we haven't received the fund yet.
Can you send us that application so we can take a look?
Once I get it out of it, so
No, I don't think it's that yet.
I don't have it yet.
And right now, I have a better fund.
Is it going to let us all be involved in, I mean, you guys haven't decided, but would it be all of us involved in picking the 6, or would it be just you guys, or?
I think we have to do this with the council.
Okay, just was curious.
And we're wanting to present them here.
But I would like to ask the school for some help. Do you have anything?
Right.
And all sounds good.
The only other question I have is, do we have like something more detailed than just the summary sheet?
Maybe.
Like, for example, like all the,
Oh, yeah, the receipts.
right, I just want, is there an easy report to pull?
There would be a report to pull, but it's not gonna have, for example, a lot of stuff had to be paid for with the card. And so it's gonna have whoever purchased it with their card, it's gonna be a reimbursement to them. And you're more than welcome to come in and look at the different.
Right,
cities if you
no,
want.
I was just like curious, like.
That was just the easiest way for me to break it down. Or if you have any,
No, those are on the contracts.
and if you have any questions about any of the contracts, I can also give you that information. And we can go over that.
The contracts have the bottom line figures on them.
I just thought it would be a more detailed report.
Well, see, but the bad part is when we pay stuff with credit card, they see comes to reimbursement.
And it just shows as a reimbursement, it doesn't show exactly what it is until you go to the actual bill and you see what was reimbursed. Yes, sir.
The receipts are all there.
Yes.
The receipts have to be there. Auditors require receipt for everything.
Anything else on that? It was pretty successful.
Was there a way of tracking, like, is there any way that the city tracked, like, how much I was there, so I saw it, but, like, do we know numbers, or is there a way to know numbers?
What?
I guess, people brought in from outside, you know, since it is using hot funds, like, do we know how many?
I think they guesstimated off of your sales.
Yes, you know.
Well, I will say that we are receiving some of our hot funds from what we received from the month of May. And there was, so far with the hotels that we've found, there's been an increase from April to May.
Okay.
And when they come in, they've given positive feedback saying that
It worked.
it did work for them. They said a lot of people that actually were, I guess they had maybe planned on driving back home, and then they were ready here and decided, no, we're gonna stay the night, and they said that a lot of them pulled up.
Good night. There are ways to track hotel.
I was wondering, how does that work?
There's also a way to track sales tax.
Is that like based on an equation, or is there a general tracking system?
There's a way to, so sales tax data is harder to get on a per unit basis, but you can do summary reports because your chamber should have it. They should track sales tax every month. So you'll know if there was an increase on any particular weekend.
No, but they track that information. They just didn't go through the chamber, but if they're a good chamber of commerce, they're tracking the sales tax on a monthly basis.
I know when John was in here from the state, he said he had 3 people from out of state staying at his place. Which I know that's just 3 people that, there's no, if there's 3 people from out of state staying there, there's a reason they stayed there. Because there was probably nothing up here available, so.
And our vendors did, by the end of the night, they were all selling out of food. So,
What our fire department end up doing? $900 cleared or something?
I don't know, was it everything?
I don't think so. Anyway, there's no problem with the people wanting to come back because it was, it did pretty well.
Actually, the guy tried to have 6 events a year now, they told him no. The guy that did the event for us, that helped us with the sales, with your sales, so we didn't go through the city, we didn't make the profit. We hired an agency to do it.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? And he tried to send us a bill to do 6 events a year. I was like, no way.
Well, it's a good idea, it's just.
Well, that's a lot of.
It's a lot of work. Anything else on that?
If the people come.
The parades are great.
Nothing arranged.
Is there anything else on item number,
It was a success, but that's
20?
A lot of people like the musician as well.
Yes.
I got a lot of positive feedback on that.
Do we need to do anything? We don't need to do anything.
No.
Not until we get that money for the,
Unless you, you guys need to tell me what you want me to do though, because it says consider impossible act.
so I guess if we do get that money, then we should set up for those scholarships. That's what the money's intended for, right?
Yes.
Then I make a motion that once we, city manager gets the money and it has an amount, and we set up, some criteria for some scholarships for our current seniors.
Okay?
Fine. Who's second? I'm sorry.
Leslie.
Counselor Briones?
Yes.
Counselor Wynn?
Yes.
Counselor Sines? Yes. Counselor Thomas?
Yes.
Counselor Meyer?
Yes.
Motion passes. Item 21, consideration of possible action moving the City of Kenedy July regular scheduled meeting from July 9, 2019 to July 2nd, 2019. Any movement?
I'll make a motion to consider number 21.
I'll second it.
Discussion. Go ahead, Justin.
This is, I asked for this to be on here. I will not be here on July 9th. And I really don't want to, I've never missed a city council meeting and don't want to miss a city council meeting. So I would appreciate it if we could move that regular scheduled meeting and acknowledge it here to be the previous Tuesday.
So that's still on Tuesday.
Yes.
It's just a week earlier, and I don't know what that's going to do for reports.
We don't have one.
Yeah, you won't have any of the.
Can we then move the consent agenda to the next regular scheduled meeting and just double them up?
Hey, let me ask you this, Justin. How do you feel about July the 10th, which would be a Wednesday?
I actually get back into town on July the 10th.
So does that work for you or not work for you?
No, I will be getting in town late that Wednesday.
I need to ask a question, ma'am. What days are you going to be gone? Does anybody have any vacation plans? We need to have a special meeting on this vacation plans.
I will be gone from July 3rd through July 10th.
And I'll be gone the 24th through the 27th.
Of this month?
Yeah.
Brandon? Cindy, do you want to hear? You're good?
The July 4th weekend, but that's.
No, you're not going to do it. So.
It's 2 weeks in July, I'm not available.
Okay.
I would really like to keep it for July 9th if Justin can't make do with the 10th, but that's just me.
Oh, can we not? Can I
If we
make
had a
it?
mayor pro tem, it wouldn't be a big deal, but since we don't, I'm not gonna be here. So, we now have a problem.
Well, isn't Leslie still the acting mayor pro tem?
He is? Oh. Okay, as long as Leslie's here, we're good.
July 2nd?
Yes, sir.
I'm here.
So then I would like to make a motion to move the City of Kenedy July regular scheduled meeting from July 9th 2019 to July 2nd, 2019, and have the consent agenda presented at the next regular scheduled meeting.
I second. Any other discussion? Call it.
Counselor Bionis?
Yes.
Counselor Wynn?
Yes.
Counselor Stein?
Yes.
Counselor Kano?
Yes.
Counselor Meyer?
Yes.
Motion passes. Item number 22, city manager's report.
All we have on here is the employee of the month, which is Eddie Salazar. I'm not sure if y'all know him or not. Really good employee. I also have some information I want to share with y'all that Mr. Rico passed away. He was our janitor, and a janitor of the school for years and years and years, and his wife both. I have his arrangements. His sister-in-law texted me. Hold on. It's not that far back. Hold on, she texted me today, or yesterday. Here it is. His services, his rosary is going to be Thursday at 7 p.m. at Eccles, and his funeral mass is going to be Friday at 10 a.m. at the Catholic Church here in Kenedy. Excuse me?
Our Lady Queen of Peace.
That's all I got.
That's all we have. Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Yes, I was actually.
All right.